Welcome everybody back to the DomCast, episode 21 and the final of the 75th NBA season. We really made it. We have made it to the NBA, well, play-in tournament. Playoffs don't actually start till next Saturday. Or not next Saturday, Saturday. Today is Monday. I'm a little bit off my balance because I was stuck in an airport the entire day yesterday. You might notice this podcast on Spotify is a little bit late, but better late than never. On today's pod, first of all, definitely just want to thank y'all for riding out the journey this season. Has been a ton of fun. This is the most fun I've had in the season in quite a while. 2022, when I look back, is going to rank up pretty high on the terms of seasons enjoyed. Of course, we had our bout with COVID, and it seemed like the season was going to stop, but that's a distant memory now. This has been a really entertaining season for the most part in terms of guys' bodies. They've been healthy, so. I've just had so much fun with that, watched more basketball than I ever have, even the games that I missed, because I would never lie and say I watch every game every night. I don't even aspire to that, but I at least dipped my feet in the water on damn near every single game that happened this year, up until this last week where they were running their G League lineups. After that, it's like, okay, I can kind of pick and choose what I need to see here. But either way, much appreciated with the support, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. It's been a whole lot of fun, and the podcast will continue through the playoffs and through the summer. I have a lot lined up for the summer. I have so many high-level guests lined up. Speaking of which, I got to do, if you were wondering about my all-NBA teams, that'll be on a podcast that probably happens with Mike Korzimba coming up on Friday. But I did get to do one with my guy Mo, and BJ Armstrong. Had no clue he was going to show up. We were on a Zoom call. Thought I was just going to be kicking it with my boy Mo, talking hoops. And then, boom. Fucking BJ Armstrong pulls up on the call. So that was a lot of fun. He gave his all-NBA teams too. Gonna try to get him as a guest throughout the summer. But for now, what we will be doing on today's podcast, not necessarily playoff predictions. I will be dipping my feet in the playoff waters, but the play-in has still not been done, so we don't know who the second seed is playing or the first seed, which in the Eastern Conference at least is really important. It's actually kind of important in the West too. It's a little bit important in the West too. So, but I'll be dipping my feet in. That's something that we will also dive in more with Mike. Today we'll just be recapping the season mostly. Be recapping the season, looking at what teams did and where they can go from here. And all 30, but I'm only going to be saying a little bit about all 30 teams. I'm not about to do a deep dive into every single team and every single player here. As usual, if you're on Spotify, ratings are appreciated. I think we reached maximum capacity already on Apple Podcasts, so appreciate y'all. And if you're on YouTube, the like button always helps. Well then, with all that said, let's just go ahead and get started with the best team in the NBA, coming in at a 64-18 record. They won 78% of their games, 32-9 at home, 32-9 on the road, so they can just bring the smoke to you anywhere. The Phoenix Suns. I have to applaud their season. I would have to go back and see where I had them rated at the beginning, that very first stream we did to start the season. I believe we probably placed them 3rd or 4th in the West. I can't remember right now. Anyways, as we thought the West was going to be healthier. Hell, we thought the West was going to be better. But what a bounce back. This has all the makings of a comeback story. The NBA plays out like a story sometimes. Phoenix Suns, they're playing out that way. They are the only 60-win team in the NBA by a mile. The closest to them was the Memphis Grizzlies, who you can't even say, oh, they just didn't have Ja Morant, because they only lost like 3 games without him. So they maybe would have been a 60-win team, but they won 56 games. So and then in the East, the highest win total was 53 for the Miami Heat. So the Suns, just an incredible season, and I have very little questions about them going into the playoffs. I have only a few concerns about teams matching up with them. But just their story, though. To lose a 2-0 lead against the Milwaukee Bucks last year and get reverse swept, that right there looked like the window was probably closed, because two things can be true. You can admit that the Phoenix Suns were a great team last year that also had a lot of help getting to the NBA Finals. They just did. The thing with the Los Angeles Lakers, I firmly believe if the Lakers were healthy, they probably would have won that series. I thought coming into it, it was very unfortunate for Phoenix to have to play them, but it happened. Fate played out how it did. Got the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. Yes, they had a lot of help, and then they lost against the Milwaukee Bucks. So because of that, that's what makes this season so amazing. It's because of that, it was very easy to just write them off and say, all right, well, they just kind of made it by default. They were a good team, but they also kind of made it by default last year to the finals. Coming into this year, and only lose 18 games whilst missing Chris Paul and Booker and Aiden for time. That's incredible. Guys just kept, and bench guys too. Hell, Campaign was out for a good stretch. To come in and throw whatever lineup they had to on the floor, to throw whatever big man they had to on the floor with Chris Paul, and to be this efficient, and to have the development from guys like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. This is and oh, by the way, JaVale McGee as well. What an upgrade. That was a sneaky upgrade over the summer. And to bring him in as well, he comes up and posts his best season. This has been a very fun team. The only concerns that I have with them really are just little details. Like maybe, I don't know, DeAndre Ayton and pick and roll defense versus a team that might try to exploit him a little bit or try to drag him out of the paint a little bit. Just little things like that they can probably cover up for. Or I really don't know what else. I don't know what at this point that Chris Paul maybe isn't defensively what he once was, but even then, like, I feel like it covers up a little bit with the fact that Booker's defense has improved. So I'm not necessarily worried about them quote unquote hunting a guy like Chris Paul right now. I don't really think that's a term that I would use. The only thing aside from maybe some with Aiden is them going up against a team like the Warriors, which we don't even know what's going to happen yet, because the Warriors played them well, healthy the entire, or not healthy, sorry, whatever the matchup was, healthy or unhealthy, they played them well the entire season up until this last one where they almost won and Steph Curry wasn't even playing. So just little things that might not even come to fruition, because at this point it's starting to feel like Curry might miss a game or two out of that first round, which is significant, like very significant. So we have to wait, and before I even start discussing something like that, we have to wait till the second round. But other than that, Booker had an all NBA season. Chris Paul is obviously not prime Chris Paul, but he has all the smarts that he always had. He's still an elite floor general. Aiden improved, and finishing at a very high level around the rim. They've got so many support pieces, got a lot of guys that can hit shots. The ball moves very well. Defensively, this team is on a string. The effort that you get from a guy like Mikal Bridges, who he has the tools to fall back on, but is still chasing guys around, or getting over screens and chasing guys and recovering to contest shots. Like there's just there's not a lot to worry about with the Suns. It's to the point where, well, first of all, they could beat, in my eyes, any team that's in the bracket. Any team that's in this bracket, they can match up and they can defeat. Even I was seeing, so the Utah Jazz played them, and if you weren't aware, earlier this weekend they lost another lead, so that happened, of course. I was starting to see tweets on my timeline of, oh, this is, even I've been seeing it all season, Suns fans kind of saying, hey, the Jazz match up with us well, and Utah in all likelihood is, oh, actually that's important. Utah might get this chance to play Phoenix, because something happened, very unfortunate timing with Luka. I don't want to speculate, but it's just looking like it might work out for Utah to be able to win that 4-5 series that is now going to happen, which would place them with Phoenix in the second round. So anyways, I just keep seeing these things about Utah being a good matchup for them. I personally don't all the way agree, especially with what the Suns can do in terms of screens and the mid-range guys that they have. I don't, like I said, Utah has some things they can do offensively that might bother Phoenix, but Phoenix can bother them right back, and I think that they have enough to win a series like that, even if it went like 6 games. And then, of course, they came back the other night and beat them, so Utah is just morally not even in a good place. Anyways, I don't even know how I got on that tangent. Basically, what I'm saying is the Suns should go to the finals in my eyes this year. They should go to the finals. At that point, depends who they get in there, but they should beat most Eastern teams. I actually think if they're able to clear a Golden State, and even if Utah were to scare them, if they were able to clear all that, they should probably end up like either beating most of the East teams, or having a nice matchup with Milwaukee once again. Yeah, don't go out in the second round. That would be horrible. Twitter already doesn't have LeBron in the playoffs this year. It might not end up having a whole lot of Steph, so they're gonna be hungry for narratives. And so Suns going out before the West would ruin what otherwise is going to be a great basketball postseason. I don't know if it would ruin it, because a lot of people want to see. That's the other thing, aside from it just being the fact that their window should definitely close after this. Like, it should have closed after last season, but hell, they've gotten so good now, I can't even say it should close after this season. Yeah, they have. What am I talking? No, that's not the terminology that I'm looking for. That is not in terms of windows closing. That would have been this year if it would have happened. They've got a young, great team, even when Chris Paul isn't playing, but he is such a big part of that. I'm really going on a tangent right now. Look, basically what I'm saying is Phoenix just get to the finals and then go from there. Don't lose before it. Do not lose before it. We've come a long way, man. We have come a long way though still in terms of playoffs and having certain teams come into a season and knowing that they were going to be great and go to the finals and dominate everybody. This is going to be so interesting because even as good as Phoenix is, they are still not, like, the championship is not just sitting in their lap already. And we used to deal with that. I can't believe we used to deal with that. That's one of the things that made this season so enjoyable, is that element doesn't actually exist right now. So, death to super teams. Good luck, Phoenix. That's where I was going, because people hate them. People hate them because of the videos that leaked of them, like, working out and celebrating, which are things that they probably do. Not celebrating, but being super hype in the tunnel, which is things that they do all the time. However, the videos have been posted more frequently lately, and now people have got a villain. You know, because otherwise, there's not a whole lot of villains to go around in this postseason. So people have latched on to that, and that should be a lot of fun. Should something interesting happen with them? Something interesting happened with the Memphis Grizzlies this season, and I have just never seen. First of all, like a season-to-season jump. To go from the play-in last year to being nearly a 60-win team this year. Man, John Morant is in the most improved players talks. That year 3 jump has made me spoiled already, because now I'm looking at other guys that are in year 2 right now and hoping they can have the same year 3 jump, although that is completely not a normal thing. I mean, year 3 is a interesting year for guys that might end up being MVPs and stuff. So I don't know if I would say it's not normal, but it might get me spoiled, because I can't expect that from everybody fairly. But it's not just Ja, man. It's not just Ja. This entire team, I would say next to, gosh, maybe next to no one. It's a team that I'm most intrigued about going into the playoffs. It's a team that gets me the most curious, because as far as playoff basketball, I guess the thing that I worry about might be, what ends up happening in the half court if they get bogged down, if some of the Jaren Jackson threes aren't falling. Like, I end up worrying about stuff like that. But outside of that, they exhibit a lot of championship team, a lot of championship team factors in terms of depth, in terms of next guy up, in terms of having that star player. Like, they exhibit all of that, but it's so early in the process that it's just like, man, are they really them? And so in terms of having options outside of Ja, like, they have 3 legitimate ones to go to at all times. In a Desmond Bane, in a Dylan Brooks, in a Jaren Jackson. You got bench guys that are going to step up and be competitive. Hell, D'Anthony Melton if you have to. Like, it goes so far down. And literally the only consistent knock that people have at this point is, oh, they're young. Nobody saw this for them at all. If we go back and look, they might have probably been, if they weren't 6th in our bracket earlier, what were they? Probably play-in squad, I would say. We probably had them fighting for a play-in again this year. And they've been solidly 2nd seed for a while now. Of course, there's a little bit of help with Golden State Warriors falling off the way they did with injuries, but an incredible season for a young squad. And at this point, I remember I made the video earlier in the year talking about them being comparable to the 2010 Thunder, but it's almost beyond that, because that 2010 Thunder team, it was still understood that they were young and that they were just scary. Yes, Memphis is young and scary, but also, I don't know, it just in terms of where it didn't ever seem like the Thunder would be able to beat a top team. Grizzlies, I'm like, they quite possibly can. At least in my eyes right now. I'd be very disappointed if they ended up going out to a play-in team. And boy, they wouldn't hear the end of it, because aside from the Phoenix Suns, that's another team that gets a lot of media play, and we see them talk a lot. And so they might have moved up ahead of schedule in terms of people wanting to see them lose. When I did a post on whose team's downfall you praying on in the playoffs, I saw a lot of Memphis Grizzlies and Celtics there, so maybe it's ahead of schedule, I don't know. But yeah, this team finishes 56-26, and I am still hopeful that we can get the second round with Memphis and Golden State. I feel like we need that, but that pretty much, that can just go ahead and take us to Golden State, because they dealt with a lot this year. What I would say about the Warriors is just coming into this season without Klay Thompson and a bit of a retooled roster from last year. First of all, they completely shock and awed from the start of the season. They were a lot better than we all thought they were going to be. And then it became a thing of, oh, we're going to throw Klay Thompson on top of this. That slump, though, man. That Steph slump that went from November to basically somewhere in January or February. It's just a massive slump, shooting slump that he went through. And they've spent most of this year trying to get healthy. But even with that, I would say the light in that situation is the team still won 53 games. They won 53 games with Dre, Steph, and Klay playing what? Like 2 games together, probably? And then, so Draymond Green was out for a long stretch of time, and Klay Thompson had to come back, and then Steph went out, and he's still out. This team still got 53 wins, so it's easy to kind of like fall asleep on them, but Jordan Poole stepped into that role. He was showing great development at the beginning of the year. Had to kind of, I think once Klay came back, he might have messed with his rhythm a little bit. However, towards the end, he came back and looked, I would say, even better than he did at the beginning of the season. So now the question kind of becomes, what happens with that lineup? Is Poole going to go back to the bench? And what does it do defensively if you have Steph? Or how do you handle it defensively? What type of small lineup do you play if you don't put him back to the bench? If you're going to run Steph, Klay, Poole, Wiggins, and then it would have to be Dre? Or you can put Wiggins on the bench, and is he going to thrive in that role? They do have some interesting lineup questions once Steph comes back, and I hope it's sooner rather than later, because that is the other part that I am super duper worried about, is the fact that it's a foot injury. And up to right now, April 11th, there's a whole lot of maybe and if going on. So even if he's back, and they say, okay, yeah, he's ready for the first or second, let's just say game 2 against the Nuggets, that still kind of feels like a, well, yeah, he's not fully healthy, but we need him type thing. That sounds a lot like 2016. And that, we all know how that ended. If he comes back, he was recovering from the slump, I would say, before he went out. It wasn't old Steph, but it was better than slump Steph. Come back and he's just playing on that, I guess. I don't know. And how heavily can you lean into Klay Thompson? Klay Thompson has been looking better and better as the season has gone on. Was up 41 against the Pelicans. Nobody was really playing, but still, glad to see off of 2 major injuries. I'm happy with what I've seen from Klay Thompson in his return. I'll say that. I'm happy from what I've seen with him from 2 major injuries. I would even say maybe he's exceeded expectations a little bit, just because those injuries are too, like the magnitude of those, it's kind of crazy. So it's had a couple 40-point games or a couple of high-scoring games. Golden State ends the season on a 5-game win streak. Everything for them is literally just health. It's just health, and if they can do that, they can compete with damn near anybody. But yeah, the lineup questions are going to be interesting. Steph's health is going to be interesting, and they are going to be dealing with Jokic in the first round. So that's the first official team that we actually have discussed here, and we know their playoff matchup. They have a lack of bigs, and they're going to be playing Denver. I would say Kevon Looney had some encouraging defensive plays against him last time they played. But that is going to be fun. That is going to be a fun one. I am definitely going to be keeping an eye on Jokic and his defense, just because I feel like maybe he'll have a little bit more in the tank for it now that it's the playoffs and every single game matters. I wonder if it'll get back to closer to where it was at the beginning of the season, because I am going to assume they're going to be trying to involve him in a lot of PNR, and to make him work, at least, even if he defends it well. They're definitely going to be trying to make him work. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Dallas. If you hadn't heard the unfortunate news, Luka Doncic has a calf strain in game 82 of the season. It was non-contact, obviously. He was just running out to somebody, to close out. and started limping. Calf strains. I was wondering why last night I was feeling away, and I started reading my Twitter replies, and I was, oh damn, Vietnam flashbacks. I remember now. Kevin Durant, he had the calf strain, and he disappeared for a long time, and then he came back, and we know how that ended. Came back because they needed him to. He just did this in game 82. Luka did. He has a week off. Calf strains generally don't heal in a week. Even if they were able to put him out there, I'd be questioning his health then. You would say, okay, well, we can give him 2 weeks. 2 weeks is too long. 2 weeks is too long. The Jazz series will be, what, halfway over by that point? This is very unfortunate because otherwise Dallas had a really good season, man. They started off slow. Luka started off, for his standard, slow, which is, well, like I said, what was going to keep him from winning MVP. So, as we all know, by now I could tell you that did not happen. The MVP is probably, at this point, it's probably Jokic. It's probably, he's got it. Even though Embiid finished the season really strong, it feels like the voters have chosen. Anyways, Dallas went full on. You call it Luka ball, but a lot of the team is eating. But I just call it Luka ball because everything, whether he's scoring or whether he's assisting, everything kind of starts and ends with him. They went with that. They traded Kristaps Porzingis for some shooters. That was the goal, anyways, and creators to put around Luka. Spencer Dinwiddie started off pretty hot with that. Davis Bertans, I self-cover basically at this point. We talked about that last week, but you know, Dinwiddie was going to be a really big factor for the playoffs, and watching this team just felt like watching an old James Harden team, old James Harden Rockets team. Pick and roll, choose how you're going to defend Luka, and he will adapt accordingly. And if all else fails, you're just going to step back. If you get your big man on him, he's just going to step back. That is pretty much how they got to, aside from their defense as well. Their defense was very solid throughout the season for a team that I would say you wouldn't expect it from. They ended up with a 52-30 record. Literally the only thing Luka was missing to win the MVP was just that first chunk of the season, that first month or two, not being healthy, and then before that not really being in shape. That's the only thing. Other than that, if you would have told me that was the season he had coming at the beginning of it, if you'd have told me that's how, you know, how he finished it, basically, if you'd have just showed me how he finished it, I would have thought he won it as well. But it didn't happen. Top 4 seed, that's all I had ever said. Dallas, with the roster that they had, if he could get it to a top 4 seed, I thought he was in a sweet spot. But yeah, it's not happening. It is not happening, and if you watch the whole season, then you understand why. But yeah, just entirely unfortunate. They are going to be playing Utah. Utah was already I would say, in terms of the teams that Utah could have played, Dallas, not that they wanted Dallas, but just like they can match them pretty well. And Luka even missing 2 games of that series is detrimental. And at that point, if they were down 0-2, I don't even know if they would bring Luka back, because you don't want another KD situation. You have a future to protect. You're not winning a championship this year. I know Dallas fans were hopeful for maybe a surprise run, and Dallas, to me, has just never been a championship team this entire season. Even with the things that they were able to pull off, I still wasn't able to get there. And I don't know if Dallas knows that, but don't put Luka out there if he's not anything but 100% ready. Because we saw how that happened, and everybody is not going to come back from an Achilles like KD. So that's just unfortunate, bro. In game 82, and they kind of had, I think they were still gunning for the 3rd seed. So they had something to play for, but just that is, I would be ugly crying if I was a Dallas fan right now. By the way, just want to reiterate, we don't have any actual information on when he's coming back or what the injury is. It's just knowing what we know about calf strains. That is terrible timing, but we'll see though. Maybe we'll get lucky. I don't know. The Utah Jazz avoided falling into the play-in. They nabbed a 5th seed, 49-33. They are kind of catching a break here, because coming into the playoffs, they were, I wouldn't say they were at their lowest point. They were at either their lowest point or their second lowest point of the season, blowing as many leads as they did to teams that they will likely have to play. If they want to have any type of success, they would have to play. Not the Clippers. I was just one. That's just par for the course. But blowing it against Golden State, a Stephless Golden State, and then the Phoenix Suns, who, once again, a lot of people say just match up well with. So if you had to beat them, that's a nice confidence booster going into a possible second round. They're just doing what they've done a couple of times this season. It's not great. It's not great. Utah, it gets lost the things that they can do offensively this season that Donovan Mitchell had. And even the unfortunate event of losing Joe Ingles, who wasn't having a great year anyways, but still though losing him to that torn ACL, I think it's just overshadowed, all the good things that this team can do. But it's just their lineups and their defense is detrimental to their playoff hopes, which is why I'm not fully on board with the whole Jazz Suns thing and it being maybe it's a matchup that they can play well in, but I'm not on the whole, oh wait, Phoenix is gonna run into a trap card against Utah. I'm not on that train. I just don't see it. The lineups, they don't have a small lineup that they can sustain defensively. That's an issue because they kind of need that, because they don't have the big guys. Sorry, they don't have the perimeter guys to cover up for, not even cover up, they don't have the big guys to protect Rudy Gobert. They just don't have they don't have the perimeter guys to do that. And so because of that, teams kind of have, the book is out on them. Basically the book is out on them, and regardless of what they can do offensively, I think everyone's frustrated with what happens defensively. Rudy is frustrated because it puts him in a bad position. He even is talking about how that affects his defensive player of the year chances, which I don't think he'll be getting this year. He's frustrated. Donovan Mitchell was frustrated. Just a whole lot of frustration going into a postseason. But we'll see what they can tie together, because playing Dallas in the first round, where right now I'm going to guesstimate Luka is going to miss at least best case scenario one game. Maybe they can just say, okay, well, there's no way they would lose to the Mavericks without Luka, right? He does everything for that team offensively, so they're not going to lose to the Mavericks if he misses much of that series. So you beat them, and then you get into the second round. You're probably playing Phoenix. At that point, you just, all right, we're here now. We didn't go out in the first round. It didn't crumble like it was looking like it would at the end of the season. You just kind of put the end of the season behind you and go from there. But other than that, yeah, I would just say right now, before me and Mike do the podcast, I did 2 takes of this podcast, by the way, so I'm not sure if I mentioned that I will have a podcast with Mike Quizemba on Friday, Thursday or Friday, but you're not gonna see a prediction of Utah upsetting Phoenix in the second round. It's not where I'm going with that. This is not where I am going with that. Utah, I believe this should be the end of the road for them, given that I don't think they're gonna be able to do anything great in the not even postseason, sorry, in the offseason. I don't think they're gonna be able to do anything great with that, and thus, some way, somehow, I believe it'll be the end of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. I don't know if I'd call it a disappointing season, to be honest with you. 4 or 5 seed is kind of where I thought they would be as the season wore on. Don't remember where we had them at the beginning, but yeah, 4 or 5 is kind of what I saw for this team. They haven't patched the holes, so that's pretty much the season for the Utah Jazz. The frustration has been building. Maybe they'll catch a break in the first round, but we shall see. To round out the non-playing teams in the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets, they are 6th seed. Jokic did not fall into the play, and he fell there for a second, and then that brought into question, what are they going to do with the MVP? It looks like the MVP is going to Jokic to me. However, that's a whole nother conversation I have on Friday about the players' thoughts on MVPs. This season was successful for Denver, man. This is a successful year to come in and lose MPJ as early as you did, to not have Jamal Murray, and to basically be left with Jokic and a lot of decent players. Like, it just kind of threw things together. Bones Highland had a surprisingly, to me anyways, a surprisingly good rookie season. Jeff Green has been able to hang on to his athleticism somehow. As much as we talk about players like LeBron having a fountain of youth, Jeff Green is still getting up there, and he's old. So that's a lot of fun. A great mid to late season signing with DeMarcus Cousins, who has really shined as a passer for them off the bench. And it's easy to overlook that when he was in with the Kings, he was a good passer as well. But I think it pops more in Denver because it feels like that's his main role now. Obviously, you don't need him to. I mean, any scoring from him is nice, but that's not his role here. So the passes that he throws, the reads that he makes, I've really been impressed with that throughout the season. Aaron Gordon, it is unfortunate that in year 2 for Denver, he was brought there to push them over the top as a championship contender, which I thought he did last year when they were healthy. So it's unfortunate that he fits really well with them and he's been having a good season, but it's just kind of, you don't want Aaron Gordon to be number 2. You don't necessarily want him to have to try to be number 2, because for the beginning of the season that was actually Will Barton. And so any team where it's being debated that the number 2 may be Will Barton, it's just not really a great situation. But either way, they almost won 50 games, man. This team nearly won 50 games. They did not fall off. Jokic improved from his MVP season. I don't need to just break down everything that Jokic does for this team. I had long said that he's the most valuable player in the league, whether he wins it or not, and it looks like he's going to win it. I'm pretty much on board with that. I did have a Giannis MVP agenda to push at the very end, just because I would have liked to see him sweep the table. I would have liked to witness something historic like that. However, it just doesn't feel like that's going to end up being the case. Be interested to see how much that late push from Embiid in these last 4 games or so. Interested to see if that has any effect on it, but the fact that Jokic was also doing historic things at the same time, I don't know if it moved the needle. So we will have, in all likelihood, a 6-seed MVP, and they will be playing Golden State. Once again, gotta wait and see what happens with Steph, because if Steph is missing time, that is all of a sudden a more competitive series, an even more competitive series. I actually think that one's gonna be competitive regardless, but miss Steph for 2 now. That'd be fascinating. That would be fascinating. Does not look like Jamal Murray or MPJ will be returning at any point. I don't believe they should. Returning in the playoffs just doesn't really seem that great. Doesn't really seem that smart. I don't see it happening, and I don't think it would push them over the top anyways, because you need a ramp up period. Unless this is a movie and we all just don't know it. I think you need a ramp up period. So, but yeah, gonna be a competitive. It's gonna be a competitive team. I would really rather Golden State win that series though, because don't let Denver beat Golden State and then go challenge Memphis. Sorry, they would be playing Phoenix in the second. Okay, that's not happening. Never mind. Continue. Continue. This is where we get into the play-in teams. Minnesota. Boy, this is where first I would just say that there has to be some amendments. There has got to be some amendments to the play-in. Because for the San Antonio Spurs to be 12 games behind the Minnesota Timberwolves, and there's a scenario out there, it's not likely, but there's a scenario out there where the Minnesota Timberwolves would be playing the San Antonio Spurs for the 8th seed. And if it just, anything can happen in one game. If that happened, the Spurs could end up, in the playoffs, and the Wolves would not end up. The Wolves are 46-36, the Spurs are 34-48. The San Antonio Spurs should not be able to compete for a playoff spot, in my opinion, right now. Of course, the snarky, I gave absolutely no thought to this answer is, oh, well, if you just don't want to be in the play-in, just win more games. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Every team would win more games if they could. That's the goal. Things happen. Injuries happen, depending on what conference you're in. Hell, winning 50 games might not even be enough. You could do everything right and exceed expectations and win 50 games and still end up in a situation like this. Like, there could be a season where that happens. Way too much happens throughout a season that got, health and safety, the guys that were health and safety at a certain point in the year, way too much happens to just be saying, oh, just win more games. Yes, that would be nice. In an ideal world, we would just win the game. But I'm gonna be real, that answer really gives off the same troll energy of, damn, bro, Kyrie isn't that hard to stop. Just take the ball from him. Like, it really gives that energy. That's what that response gives to me, because there's a lot of things you don't control. And so if you're a team like the Timberwolves that has controlled everything that you can, and you ended up with a great season, by your books and 46 wins and you're that far ahead of another team that's competing, there should be some cutoff line. There should absolutely be a cutoff line. Anyways, we'll see if they amend that. My sense is that they probably won't, because more games, obviously, it's more ad spots, more money. So not sure if they're going to be messing with it, but it should go back to the bubble format. Minnesota, I thought they were definitely capable of 56 wins if guys hadn't missed the time that they did. And I am excited. I'm really excited for this team next year, because I think that this is, and I'm hoping that they can win one of their play-in games. If they are forced to play more than one, I'm hoping that they can do that so that they can get into the playoffs and really get a taste of that, and then come in next year and maybe have a sizable jump and be up in the upper echelon of the Western Conference. But for right now, it's just been an all NBA season from Cat. I do have him on my all NBA team. The improvements that he showed, the shooting like a damn guard basically, which he has done, but this season I don't know, it just feels a little bit different. Definitely feels a little bit different. Anthony Edwards, obviously, this being their season where you could play D'Angelo Russell, Edwards, and Cat has been a great thing. And bringing in Pat Beverly to give this team something of an identity, which has annoyed people, but I think is great, just because that's why you get a guy like Pat. This is a young team that is better than they've been. It's not all because of Pat, but Cat is talking. There's energy there. When is there energy in Minnesota? There's never energy in Minnesota. There's energy there right now. And they've got another great defensive piece in Jared Vanderbilt. I would say it is going to be interesting. What I'm most interested in this team in a playoff series, whoever they end up playing, is just seeing what they do with Cat defensively. Because I wonder like how many different, and it always comes down to pick and roll. It always, in a pick and roll heavy league, it always comes down to pick and roll. And so how many different coverages can you put him in a series that you're either going to be playing Ja Morant in, or you're either going to be playing Chris Paul in. So I'm not saying it is like a bad thing for the Wolves. I'm literally saying I'm super interested to see what happens on that side of the ball against teams that are going to be not going at him, but just running that in general and how they adjust. I'm just super interested in that specific factor for myself. But outside of that, yeah, this is to me, their last year's Grizzlies right now. Their last year's Grizzlies. They have a young player that I think is really about to break out in Anthony Edwards. They just need to give themselves a little bit of confidence by winning a play-in game here, like the Grizzlies did last year, and getting into a playoff series and winning 1 or 2 games is kind of what I hope. If you play Phoenix, that's, I think Phoenix is gonna handle that pretty well. But you go against Memphis. Memphis is still a team that just got here, so that would be a hell of a lot of fun. We just don't have a lot of information on what will happen with that at the moment. But yeah, so a successful regular season for this team. This is a successful regular season for this team. Yes, this is a squad that we definitely had fighting for a play-in spot or being at the back of the West. But you gotta admit that, bro. They did their job already. This team did their job already. And there's no reason that they should be in jeopardy. Like, okay, again, saying, well, they're not necessarily in jeopardy, just don't lose to the Clippers. Now that, yeah, I got you, but also it's a win-game scenario, fam. All it takes is for, hell, I don't know, Rocco to go off, or somebody to be hitting contested shots. The defense has done all they could, and so now you've lost. Your whole season just came down to that. Now you're really on the brink. It can happen. That Clippers Wolves playing game is going to be a lot of fun. PG is back. I just see if Norman Powell is going to be back for that one. But that is going to be a hell of a matchup. And then the thing about 1 game scenarios is, for the most part, I just feel like you're guessing, because anything can happen in 1 game. So you can look at X's and O's and you can look at playbooks and all this, but at the end of the day, it's literally just 1 match. And so you can look in the East and say, yeah, Brooklyn should be Cleveland, but Cleveland also just played them really, really well. And that was without Jared Allen literally a couple of days ago. And so that was a game that kind of came down to the end. Anything could happen, but you can call your winner. And that Clippers, well, let me talk about the Clippers first. Let me get some water too. I think it's gonna be a 2-hour podcast today. I've not done that since the very beginning of the season. Yeah, this will probably be 2 hours today. Los Angeles Clippers at 8th seed. Like we said, ton of credit for just being very well coached, still ending above 500 despite the circumstances that the Clippers, I mean, it's the Clippers, that's just what's going to happen, right? Some bullshit's going to happen to them. They dealt with it. They got PG back. They made a good trade. Like I said, we'll see what happens with Norman Powell. But this is a team that, first of all, just for the record, those are the squads that I want to see in the playoffs. I want to see the Wolves there, and I want to see the Clippers there. But one of them is going to have their season on the brink. So somebody's going to lose that game, and they're going to have one more game to play in for the A seed. So we'll see what can happen. Paul George thought he's looked pretty good since he came back. He missed damn near the whole season, but he came back and I wouldn't say he hadn't missed a beat because he was playing at just all NBA level at the very beginning of the year. He was really getting it. So he's had a couple of off nights since then. Maybe not as high as scoring nights, but for the most part, again, just from being gone for most of the season, I'm happy with it. This roster, you found some gems. Would you call Amir Coffey a gem? I would just say in terms of not really having expectations for a guy like him, for him to come in and be a usable piece. I don't know, whatever you call that. Like what I've seen from him. They've got most of the squad that they had last year when they made a run, and now you throw some shooters on top of that. That is going to be an annoying playoff team. If you're at the top of the West right now, you're hoping somebody deals with the Clippers, because you would rather deal with this young Pelicans team who's just fun than this Clippers team who probably feels like they can compete and or beat you. That's the thing about the Clippers. Even without Kawhi Leonard, who does not appear that they're going to be getting back, they probably feel like, all right, well, hell, we pushed y'all last year. Phoenix, we pushed y'all. We can play y'all really well. And hell, Memphis, again, that's really good team, and we'll probably beat them. But also, they'll be feeling like, hey, we were there last year, y'all weren't. It's a different season, but we can challenge y'all. It doesn't matter that we're in an 8 seed or at the 7 seed at that point if they were playing Memphis. We can hang with y'all. I think Clippers feel like they can hang with anybody in the Western Conference. So that's why I want to see them there, because a team with Tyronn Lue behind it feels like they can play with anybody. And they know they can play with anybody because they've done it, is the thing. It's not just a feeling, like they've actually done it. And so that's behind my random, I wouldn't say random Clippers love, because I used to give them shit, appropriately so, for their past. But yeah, I take them seriously now. That's the evolution, right? It's a cool thing about being on NBA YouTube this long. They go from a team that you just kind of laugh at every year, and you know something bad is gonna happen, to they've transferred all that unseriousness to Utah, actually. So that's what's happened there. But yeah, I would also say a successful season for the Clippers, just given the circumstances, given everything that happened for them. This was a successful season for Los Angeles, and getting to the playoffs and just building confidence with this group for your run next year, to me, is the goal. So play one of these top 2 teams, do what you can, try as hard as you can to beat them, obviously, but I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't come in expecting that. And then get to the offseason, keep what you can, put Kawhi Leonard back on top of it, and come back and be at the top of the West next year. That's the trajectory that you should be looking at if you're the Clippers. The New Orleans Pelicans, bro. I already apologized to y'all, right? We don't have to do that again, do I? We don't have to do that again from like the first 2 or 3 podcasts where I declared the season over for them. I think they were 1-12 or something. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. All right, y'all. Brandon Ingram's been one of my favorite players to keep up with and watch this year. His evolution as a playmaker has been striking. It's something that you won't just see in the numbers. The way he gets to his spots, the way that he will, look at his options off of a pick and roll and not just shoot, set other guys up, has been so much fun and important. It's been an important season for them, because the hope is that you get Zion back next year. But however, they've built a really good, in a season that looked like it was over and looked like it was just going to be, all right, well, whoops, we don't have Zion. They have developed really important factors, and getting a Herb Jones who defensively has just been off the charts for a rookie, but also letting him stretch his wings a little bit offensively as the season rolled on. You do that, you find this is where you find a gem. Jose Alvarado. Now, he is a gem. He's a guy that, for someone who did not have a face in 2K and had a generic jump shot, has probably endeared himself to fans pretty well, and he earned his contract with basically. Hustle, defense, with just literally whatever he doesn't have physically, he makes up for that in just being a smart and aggressive player. Like that's literally it with Jose Alvarado. So you get him for the future. You hope, oh my bad, you traded for CJ McCollum, which, remember when we were talking about that trade possibly happening and I was thinking they might have to give up a Herb Jones in that trade? Well, it didn't happen, thankfully. They didn't go that deep in, which I'm glad that they didn't have to, and I don't think they would have done that anyways. So you throw CJ onto that, which is another creation presence next to Brandon Ingram. That is going to be huge when you throw Zion out there next year. That's more spacing. Obviously, speaking of spacing, JV didn't take that many threes because still the defense, if you watch the Pelicans, the defense does not treat JV like a shooter because he doesn't take that many threes. And if he did take that many, I'm not sure he would be as great of a shooter. That's the thing. Like if he shot every shot that the defense gives him, they really prefer that to Brandon Ingram manipulating the defense or CJ. They much prefer that. That's why they leave him open, in my opinion. JV, but he's had a great season for them though. JV's had a solid season for them. This squad, hell, you even finding Trey Murphy here at the end as well. It's another young guy. This squad should be happy with what they were able to do in a season where they thought they were gonna have their generational pick from, what year did they pick him now? 2019? Jeez, man, where does the time go? Oh my god, I was doing Zion bit videos almost 3 years ago now. Acting like a super fan. Oh, I was a super fan, but there was still a lot of acting going on in those vids, and they're still kind of waiting on him to actually be there. I keep hearing all this talk about how that era should be over and they'd be trading him or whatever. We'll see what happens in the offseason because we've had surprise trades just pop up before, but I don't think this is like a Ben Simmons situation or anything. They can get him on this roster. They can do something really nice next year. For now, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, make the play in and build even more confidence amongst these young guys and get them some playoff reps. Yeah, that should be the goal right now for sure. But as much as I love Brandon Ingram, I'm gonna have to vote against it. I would much rather. I don't want to see them lose to the Spurs, but damn, I also don't want the Clippers or Minnesota to miss either. And the Pelicans could play either of them pretty well, possibly. I don't know. I think they would lose to the Clippers. One game though. 36-46, you made the play-in. Good season for the Pelicans, because to be honest, they could have easily found themselves around that 13 or 14 spot, given how the season started. So good stuff for New Orleans, and we'll see what they can add in the offseason should they not make the play-in. There's also some stuff going on with picks there too, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I try to talk about stuff that I know on this podcast. And I've been paying so much attention just to the actual season. I hadn't even begun to consider like the pick implications yet. So I'm sure there's a podcast that does those things. The San Antonio Spurs. Now, I don't even know if that's worth bringing up. Look, here's my opinion. I don't think the Spurs thought they can make the playoffs at a certain point in this year. DeJounte Murray makes an all-star team. Keldon Johnson lighting it up from 3. Jakob Poeltl. Interesting defensive big man, and outside of that, it's a lot of randomness and hope. Like you hope Lonnie Walker can come in, and towards the end of the season, I think I saw some nice flashes from him. I even gave him a little segment on the podcast. Lonnie Walker, you hope that he can be one of those guys that establishes himself as a part of that core. Josh Primo, really young guy, had some G League burn this year. Obviously, hoping that you can use him for the future. But I don't think this team thought they were in position to make the playoffs at a certain point. The Los Angeles Lakers just kept losing and losing and losing and losing and losing and losing. And we got to the end of the season and it was like, oh, okay, you know what? I guess we'll go for it. That is how I view the San Antonio Spurs. Yes, a Popovich team is always trying to win. Popovich does not try to lose. I think that those type of things come from the top of the organization anyways. But I don't think in any other circumstance, like this season would have been cooked a while ago. The Spurs are 8 games out of 8th. They would have known a while ago this season was over if the play-in had different rules or if the play-in didn't exist. It'd have been over a while ago. They are just kind of here. This is a team that is very raw in terms of the building process, and they're just here. So it's good. I like DeJounte Murray a lot. Talking about him and him breaking out at the beginning of the season. That is a guy that hopefully doesn't end up falling off, because I still think there's potential for him to tap into as he is right now. Again, great player, but definitely think he's got to get even better for him to be the piece that they're just straight up building around. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But yeah, they're just here, and they'll be playing the Pelicans, and that's an interesting. Given that we could have had drama with the Lakers and Pelicans, Spurs and Pelicans from a play-in standpoint I would just say it's a significant downgrade. Even though the Spurs deserve it more, than the Lakers didn't want to be there, it's still kind of a downgraded. That game is not going to do the numbers that a Lakers game would have. So don't come in here and acting righteous, talking about X's and O's. We wanted to see Lakers Pelicans, but whatever, it's fine. One of those teams will be playing in a game for the A spot. And yeah, I would say for the Spurs, like, you had a guy make an all-star team, even if it was through I think DeJounte filled in, right? I believe he filled in an all-star spot. It's just about development for that team. They are very early on in this process, and they might end up being an 8 seed, which would be nuts. But Popovich is here, man. Popovich is here. We do not know, as coach of the Spurs, for how much longer. That's it for the play-in. After that, you have young teams and the Lakers. The Lakers finished 33-49, and it leaked before the game was over last night that Frank Vogel is out as coach. Woj reported that. Vogel said he hadn't heard a damn thing. This season is just so ugly for the Lakers. Like, to end with that, to come to the end of this season, and your coach has effectively been fired on Twitter before he even knows. Bro, what a stain on the Lakers as a franchise this season has been. It has been one of the worst seasons I've seen from a team that was supposed to be competitive at the least, like at the bare minimum competitive. And there were times where it was just, there were certain games going into it, and I was just saying, from a basketball standpoint, they're not capable of winning this game, and that should never feel like that with a team that has LeBron James on it. Hell, and even at this point, even though Russ wasn't great this season, hell, having him on it, it should never feel that way. I applauded the Lakers' downfall this entire season. Every single podcast, I believe they had a segment, because there was always something to talk about with them. It got smaller and smaller as the season went on. And it comes down to this team got injured to hell, and there's all this talking going on, and the morale is low. LeBron gets hurt, and AD gets hurt, and AD gets hurt again. Russ is missing layups, but then also he's having a couple of decent games. So Russ Stan Twitter is telling you to tweet about those games, even though for a guy that makes $40 million, I should not be tweeting about the few good games that he's had, but whatever. And then at the very end, they're talking about how he led the team in every stat, even though out of all the big three, he definitely probably played the most games. So that kind of makes sense. When we're talking about, when I'm watching Laker fans talk about Wenyen Gabriel and Stanley Johnson as saviors, it's, and no disrespect to those guys. Stan came in and filled a role, and Wenyen Gabriel has probably earned himself some staying power. He was in the G League for a lot of this year. Actually, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how much of it he was there. I just know he was there for a stint. He's probably, by playing this role with the Lakers, probably earned himself some staying power. But that's, again, and that draft expansion Twitter question I was talking about. If there was an expansion draft, who would the Lakers protect? And I was seeing Wenyen Gabriel as one of the guys to protect. That's where they are this season. They are now headed to an offseason where they'd have to find a coach. No clue which direction they're going with that. They have to find out how to get Westbrook away from this team and fill his role. They've signed Mac McClung to a two-way. That's good. If you haven't been paying attention, Mac McClung was the rookie of the year in the G League. He has added a three-pointer to his game. So he's not just dunks, which he did have in the last game last night. Nice little reverse there at the end. He's a shooter as well. Don't think he's going to be the Lakers starting point guard or anything. However, it would be nice to see him get some burn possibly next year and see what he can do at least. Because he's spent pretty much the entire year with South Bay, but he used the G League how it's supposed to be used. He really has improved. It's been a delight to see that in his game. But yeah, they just got a hell of an offseason, bro. Lakers have a hell of an offseason, and they have to figure out how to keep LeBron James. let's just go ahead and put it out there, all right? This whole thing with LeBron is say, oh, I want to play with this team forever, and I plan on being here. Look, I've heard that shit before. I've heard that before. I synced it before, and it has ended the same way every time I've heard it and seen it. So they have to figure out how to do that. how to make this roster competitive, because if he does not see a competitive roster or a future, which is crazy talking about him going into year 20, but if he doesn't see a competitive roster or a future after that, I don't think he's probably going to stay, so we'll see what happens. And Bronny's going to be in the NBA regardless of if he's actually ready for it or not. He's going to be in the NBA eventually. That'll change LeBron's future there. We'll see what ends up happening. Maybe he signs another 1-year deal after next season. I don't know. Literally, they just need to make next season go as squeaky clean as possible, because y'all are on the hook. Y'all are on the hook. AD needs to, like, I don't know. They place that Doctor Strange went to heal his hands or learn whatever the fuck happened in that movie. AD's got to go do something with his body, bro. AD has got to go do something with his body so shit stops bending and he stops crashing to the floor and holding, at this point he's held every part of his body as he's hit the floor. He's got to do something, because they're freak accidents. A lot of his injuries are freak accidents, but even before the injury that ends up putting him out for games happens, he's always on the floor holding some shit, or he gets hit and he's always holding some shit. Like, something has to happen, bro. Something has to happen, because you can only get injured so many times before they start saying vintage Anthony Davis, which they've already started saying. Like, at this point, you've got the bubble ring to show for, so that happened. They won a championship. That will always have happened. But damn, LeBron and AD has not been able to live up to the to LeBron and AD expectations outside of that championship because of injuries. You got that one, and then next year injured, you go out in the first round. Next year you don't make the playoffs. Like, it's got to be something else. There's got to be at least another competitive season. There has to be at least another competitive season. But the goal already happened, right? You won a championship, so I don't know. Like, that will forever have happened. Okay, I'm done talking about the Lakers for this season. We're well aware of everything that needs to happen there, right? We'll talk about them later. I'll have some Laker fans on this summer. Sacramento Kings finished at 30-52. They traded Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis, hoping that he could help them make the play-in this year. That did not happen. De'Aaron Fox has been in and out the entire season. For the stretch that he came back, he was pretty decent. Then he went out again. And then Davion Mitchell started playing, which is pretty much where I want to go. Yes, Davion Mitchell, I see the vision. I absolutely see the vision. I will say that was one of the reasons I always said a trade had to happen. I just killed a fly. That was the clap you heard. I'd always said a trade needed to happen. It was very obvious that, well, first of all, Fox and Halliburton didn't need to be playing together, just like, in my opinion, Malcolm Brogdon and Halliburton also don't need to be playing together. But then you throw Davion Mitchell onto that, and now that he's been able to play point guard because Fox has been out, oh boy. I see the vision, because he is one of the most aggressive on-ball defenders in the NBA. That's on that side of the ball. You on the offensive side, the creation, the process is what you got to pay attention to, because the shooting percentages might not be that great, but his handles are tight. The way he can get to his spot in the mid-range for a rookie, I would say is fairly advanced. And then he has a driving package that I will say for most of the season I really didn't know he had. But he has a nice driving package. He has a very nice finishing touch around the rim. I'm talking about layups where he contorts to get them, kind of like D Rose used to, or hell, how Ja Morant does now. Like, he contorts, not all the way like them, but he has that in his bag though. I saw him against Houston even pull out a dunk, a very, very athletic looking dunk. That's a way to describe it, right? I'm talking about one of those. I don't want to say, the reason I'm stuttering right now is because I don't want to use D Rose in the sentence, or Davion Mitchell in the sentence with D Rose, but I'm just trying to say, like, he has very good finishing ability. So you do that, combine that with the way he can get to his mid range, which I think is going to improve, and his vision. He's actually a great passer as well. Ends the season with a 15 assist game. I think he had 18 and 15. It almost feels like you're back to square one though, because Halliburton and Fox, I had been saying split that up forever. Now it's just going to be Mitchell and Fox. It's going to be the same thing, because clearly he's more effective as a point guard. That's the thing. Two guys can be great and exist and just play, you can play two guards, but they end up stepping on each other's feet, because there'll be a stretch of the game where one guy is just off ball. His three-pointer is average right now, and I'm sure just because he knows he's going to be playing with Fox for a while, that's going to be a focal point this offseason. But yeah, it's obviously not at the point where you want to be using him off ball at the moment, and if you're trying to be successful. So that's something that he'll be working on. Davion Mitchell with the ball in his hands is something that I definitely want to see more of. And Fox, once again, was pretty good in his return. Like, he's still De'Aaron Fox. So I'm not saying straight replace De'Aaron Fox, but yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what the Kings do with that. And I'm sure they'll fuck it up. Like, I'm sure they will somehow. Like, it's Sacramento. That's what they do. They lose. The article hit the internet yesterday about the toxic workplace that his name is Vivek Ranadive, something like that. The owner has kind of created there. I always go back to the example of them firing Michael Malone for absolutely no good reason when they were pretty successful. Sacramento is hell. It's basketball hell. It's basketball hell. Trading Halliburton for Sabonis was not the move. If they don't get anything this summer, that's where I'll go with that. Because yes, Halliburton, Fox, and Mitchell were never ever going to reach all their potential together. So one of them was going to go. Hell, it might end up even being two of them. But they just have to cash in on that, bro. They have to cash in on that because, okay, I could see Fox, Mitchell, and Sabonis next year. Maybe they can end up doing something or being a play-in team like they wanted. We've been through the whole trade. We've been through that whole trade scenario. It's Sacramento. I don't expect much from it, but Davion Mitchell, that's just a note I want to leave you. Zach, it's Davion Mitchell. That's literally all I want to leave you with. Portland. Finishes the season on an 11-game losing streak. Damian Lillard disappeared one day this season. CJ McCollum got traded. His team started playing guys that most people have never heard of. Transparency. I care less about no team in the NBA than Portland. It's been that way for quite a while because I'm watching a shit show. I feel like I've been watching a shit show with this Damian Lillard situation. Even the one bit I was excited about was Anthony Simons coming in and breaking out. That doesn't look like it's no. He got hurt. He ended up getting hurt, so they didn't even end up getting to use him as a watching point. So it's just been a lot of randomness. Shout out to them for taking Reggie Perry away from the Raptors 905, which probably played a part in them losing to the Bluecoats in the conference finals. Oh, by the way, so the NBA finals is actually Rio Grande. Nice. Rio Grande versus Delaware. Anyways, I don't have much to say about Portland. Like, I'm mad. I'm legitimately mad talking about that team, more so than I am about the Lakers, because they should be a rebuilding team. But they're like, oh, we're going to retool around Damian Lillard. So I'll see y'all in the summer, Portland. That's all. I'm sorry. That's all I have to say about y'all. In the year 2022, I just don't care about this team hanging on to threads that they're going to be able to do something with Damian Lillard. I don't care. I don't care. Until they actually pick a direction, I don't care. Next, Oklahoma City. I just want to see Chet Holmgren find his way to Oklahoma City. That's all I want to see. That's all I want to see. I became interested in Poku at the end there because he's starting to look like an NBA player, so that's fun. His passing is fascinating to me. Of course, Josh Giddey throughout the season was one of my favorite rookies. I like his passing. Shai Gilgeous. Shai Gilgeous was absolutely cooking this season. The thing you see with Shai a lot, though, is they say, does he fit the timeline of this team? And I'll be honest, I really don't. I guess the thing that they're asking with that is because he's 23 years old, fam. He's 23 years old, and from what I remember, he's on a pretty good contract here. So it's not like he's going anywhere. Yeah, he's on the contract until 2027, and he's 23. So yeah, it's a really young team, but he's really young as well. I guess it's from a development standpoint, the fact that he's already looking like he could maybe like next season probably be all-star level. You're saying, okay, yeah, we have an all-star player here that's going to be here on a rebuilding squad. Maybe that's where they're going with it. Other than that, I don't really see the problem. And I don't think OKC should be looking to offload him at all. They've got plenty of picks, obviously. Yeah, they're going to hopefully strike gold in the draft this year. And I would say the last interesting part about them at the end of the season here, Xavier Simpson. Came from the OKC Blue of the G League. Call him Captain Hook. You've probably seen it by now because the little G League tape I posted of him went mini viral on Twitter, and then he came to the NBA and he kept using the hook shot. Basically, he can do a hook shot off the wrong foot. It's nuts. Like, he will run across the lane and do a right-handed hook shot off of his right foot. It's absolutely nuts. The excuse me. Hook shot is a lost art. You don't see big men using it. It's a literal guard using it. And he's using it in the G League, and he's done it in the NBA a couple of times. And I really wonder if it's going to catch on. We'll see if he catches on in the league and if he stays, because if he does, then you will see that shot. It's literally his go-to. I mean, he does it every single game. And so I'll be really interested to see if a player adds that to their bag, which I guess you can't do overnight. I am hoping I do have actually some faint contact with him on Twitter, so I will see if I can get him on a pod. As a matter of fact, let me write that down. I will see if I can get him on a podcast this summer. I would love to talk to him about how that became a part of his game. I'm sure it's something. First of all, I know he did it in high school, or sorry, college, but I wonder like what position he was playing in high school or as a kid that led to that. So that's a really fascinating thing, just to put that out there. Don't know if he'll end up having staying power on the Thunder, but yes, Captain Hook is very fascinating. Outside of that, yeah, there's just a lot of young guys. There's a lot of young guys. They brought Lindy Water up from the OKC Blue. That's the thing that the Thunder do a lot. They bring a lot of G League guys to play for them throughout the season. There's probably more coordination between them and their G League affiliate than there is any squad. And so it's just about seeing who sticks. But I'm excited for year 2 Josh Giddey. Excited for more Shai Gilgeous, because he's literally just getting buckets like the whole year. And that sounds cliche, but that's literally what it is. Like step backs, floaters, more step backs, threes. He has a very fun game to watch because of the bag. It's kind of like how Brandon Ingram, I like watching him just because of his offensive bag. The same thing with Shai Gilgeous. But yeah, there's, this team is literally just even rawer than San Antonio in terms of their development process. Can I interest you in some talk about a Theo Maledon? No, probably not. That's where we are with the Thunder. The Houston Rockets. I am clapping because Jalen Green he started figuring things out. He figured out where he was supposed to be. So coming into the season, it was a very disappointing. It was a very disappointing campaign. It was a disappointing campaign. Like, he's the second pick. He was doing a lot of talking, and it was to a point. It just kind of felt like, because it had to do with Cade Cunningham, and so you hear the talk. Cade isn't really responding, and then Jalen Green's not playing well, and so it looked bad. But he always had his athleticism as a base. That's it. He had that very quick first step, and the boy could probably jump and touch the top of the backboard with his feet. Like that, he's got those things going for him. Now he's starting to put like actual basketball with it as the season has drug on. So you're seeing, first of all, what's really helping, the 3-point shot has been falling since the All-Star break. That really helps because that opens up the rest of his game. Yeah, I think he might be one of the most exciting, as his career goes on. I'm theorizing he's going to be one of the most exciting chase down players to watch. He had one against, gosh, I can't remember who it was a couple of days ago, but he damn near jumped on the backboard and put the shot to the floor. So that's what type of energy he's on. He's gotten to have the ball more and get more point guard minutes, so that has obviously also helped. But the big thing for him is just figuring, I think the biggest thing for him is figuring out that 3-point shot, because once you can do that, now you have more time to make decisions in terms of coming off of a pick and roll. And guys actually having to respect that. The more times to make decisions, obviously more of an open floor to get to that mid-range shot that he likes at the top near the free throw line. And then being able to get to the rim. He's going to be able to get downhill so much more as his career goes on. It is going to be frightening. He's already caught 1 or 2 bodies coming here at the end. And so I'm glad, he's a late bloomer this season, but I'm glad he's begun to figure it out, because this Rockets team has a lot going for it. Outside of him, to Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter has also started to figure things out as well, which, shout out to him, because earlier in the season, remember, he had basically had a point where he walked out of a game and left the arena. And so that's a distant memory now. That's good. That blew over. It happened. He's come back in next to them, it's looking like, okay, we've got a nice backcourt. If that can carry over, it's got a nice backcourt for the future. It's Kevin Porter. He's got some development. He's got a ways to go in his development, obviously. Like, he's a good scorer, but if both he and Jalen Green are playmaking and scoring, that's the really important thing. I think Kevin Porter I think Jalen Green is going to figure that out better and faster than KBJ is. When KBJ is playmaking as well as he's scoring, they're both doing those things together, that's going to be a hell of a backcourt. You do that, they've pulled Josh Christopher up. He played a bit in the G League. That's another young piece that you were putting on top of an Alperen Sengun, who is a big man with some very good passing ability, like beautiful passing ability, which you would not, I don't think you'd be able to tell just by his assist numbers. But he's got vision out of this world. It's a super crafty big man who's going to also improve. But that, with the fact that you're actually having use for Kenya Martin Jr., that is going to be a squad one day. There's just also figuring out who they're getting in the draft. That's the crazy part. On top of this core that I can see a future with, they're about to get somebody on top of that. Buy your Houston Rockets stock. Buy your Houston Rockets stock. It was scary at the beginning, looking like Jalen Green. First of all, you never call a guy a bust in his first year, but just the fact that he was pretty far behind his classmates was scary. But once he starts to put that together, he's figuring that out. His Rockets team is going to put it together. I'm sure Eric Gordon is going to get shit, I have to look at his contract, actually. I think they would have dealt him if he was, I'm pretty sure they would have dealt him if he didn't have if he didn't have any years left or whatever. But yeah, they're gonna get something for him. This Rockets team is going to be fun. That brings us to the Eastern Conference. Nope, I am not splitting up this podcast. I could split it up to East and West, but there's way too much going on this week. There's play-ins tomorrow. The NBA show on Twitch that I do before that. I will be doing watch parties for, I was gonna say every play-in game. I don't know if I'm doing for the Spurs and Pelicans, but yes, you can catch that on twitch.tv/dom2k. We have a great time doing those watch parties because I amended my setup and I can actually play games during like the timeouts and shit and halftime without much effort. So it became much more enjoyable to do those than it was when we were just like looking at the screen or looking at the scoreboard in the background. All right. Nope, doing the Eastern Conference today. Do not have time to split this up. Let's talk about the Miami Heat, who are 53-29. They still employ Udonis Haslem. That is a crazy thing when you start to think about the fact that he was on the 2006 championship team with Dwayne Wade and Shaq, and he is still here with Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. But he doesn't play, so it's not as cool. It's not really that cool of a time hop. Anyways, so Miami Heat finished 53-29. I will never forget one of the earlier podcasts this year, me kind of pausing as I was doing it, just kind of thinking what bothers me about the Heat, because I knew it was always something. And then as the season goes on, it reveals itself. I think Jimmy Butler made 2 or more 3-pointers in only like 5 or 6 games this season, something like that. I heard one of the commentators say it recently, a couple of weeks ago, when he had 3 or 4 threes in the game. So there was that. It was the fact that he still does a lot of things great. Like Jimmy Butler does a lot of good things on a basketball court. I'm not trying to take away from it just because he hasn't been able to shoot. That just feels important because he's one of their main pieces, and he's gonna have to invent ways against a really good defense at some point to score. At some point, the floor is gonna be collapsed on him, and it's just gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun thing. Anyways, this is a squad that held it together almost as impressively as any team this year. They were digging deep into their bench. Omer Yurtseven, that saga was a lot of fun. He still gets minutes like every now and then, but it's not like it was at all when he was starting to get a little bit of a cult on Twitter. They found gems in Gabe Vincent. Tyler Hero is convincingly the 6th man of the year, in my opinion. I don't think it'll be going anywhere else, regardless of how you feel about that award or what it's for. It's Tyler Hero. And, good comeback for him, too, because pretty much, since last year he's been getting trashed. So, it was a good comeback season for him. And I've pretty much documented everything that worries me with Miami. There's still a chance that they'll end up playing Brooklyn in the first round. It's not all the way likely, but there's definitely a chance that could happen, and that would be a whole lot of fun given what happened last time they played. But nice bounce back for them, though. I have to say, they fell to 4th a couple of weeks ago, they were looking like cooked meat. They were kind of going through a slump like the Utah Jazz, and they bounced back. They first seed. They will have home court throughout the Eastern Conference playoffs, and it's just going to be interesting. It's just going to be about the matchups, really. Yeah, they had an impressive win against the Celtics. Sans Robert Williams, but still, that was an impressive win that they pulled out there. Max Strus had a good game there, just showing like they've found and developed a lot of guys this season to kind of keep the train rolling. Kyle Lowry had missed a good portion of the year as well. Just a lot of people missed portions. Bam Adebayo was gone for a while. Bam, defensive versatility is off the charts. He's out there spreading his propaganda. It's not really propaganda. I just use that anytime a player spreading news about themselves. Spreading his defensive player of the year propaganda, hoping to gain some traction. Not sure that it's going to happen, but absolutely, that gives you something to look forward to in a lot of these series and guys that they would match up with. Look, man, for them, it's literally just going to be generating points in the playoffs as it slows down, as you get into more half-court sets, as you play tougher defenses. I am most interested to see how, if the responsibility falls to Tyler Hero as heavily as I think that it might. I'm just interested to see how he handles that in the playoff setting. That's it. We've seen him obviously in the bubble and in the NBA Finals, giving us the worst meme of all time, the worst NBA meme of all time. Glad that nobody uses it anymore. Last year just wasn't a good season all around for the Heat, so this is the year. It's like, okay, he's gonna get 6 men. He's been a bucket this entire year. He's got many ways to score. Now I'm just, if it falls to him, if it falls on his lap in an important series, I just want to see how it goes. That's it. And yeah, a successful season for them for sure. First seed. They have, to me, I'm willing to forget last year. It's hard to say that when Jimmy Butler got outscored by, what's his name, Bryn Forbes. Yeah, so it's difficult, but I'm willing to write last year off and say, look, 2020, I thought they could have made the NBA Finals, and then they did. 2021 was a weird year, and then COVID affected them heavily. So I'm very much willing to just say, if they can be successful this year, just say, all right, it was a gap year, whatever. They came back, and they can do something cool. They can do something cool this year. But yeah, that first round matchup matters right now, because the play-in, it's like, yeah, you can play Charlotte, but you could play Atlanta, who's still, I think that would be fun. But right now, it could be like the difference between Brooklyn and all those teams in the first round. So we'll end up seeing what happens there. But I have been impressed with Miami, despite what happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. To come down the stretch of this season and not down the stretch, but to hang on to everything as they did this year, what was impressive to me, and to recoup over the last week of the season, or last 2 weeks of the season, was definitely impressive. So good season for Miami, but yeah, as I've mentioned, a lot of things that I'm interested in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler, you're up, because that contract extension is expensive. Get to the playoffs, you did it last year, it was bad. To get to the playoffs this year, it's bad. That is going to be a fun time for Miami. The Boston Celtics. I retweeted some Boston Celtics propaganda before I got on here. What a wrap up to the season for this squad. They came in and tied Golden State for first in defensive rating. And then they were first in opponent's field goal percentage at 43%, first in opponent 3-point percentage at 33%, first in opponent 2-point percentage at 50%. Sorry, 49.7. Only team in the NBA to hold opponents under 50% on 2-pointers, which again, if you round up, is 50, but the point remains. To wrap up the season, what were they? I think they were 23 and 24 at a certain point. Look, they were like sub 500 at a point. They finished the season with 7 losses, so 24 and 7, something like that, I think. It's a crazy stretch, or was it 28 and 7? I don't know. They finished the season on a crazy stretch. Never seen anything like this turnaround. I will gladly own everything I said about them before that. I'm one of those people, I don't give a damn. I don't care, fam. I talk about what I see. Beginning of the season, I did not see a good team, and I would not have told you they would turn it around. That would have sounded like fanboying and wishful thinking at that point. But they did it. They got healthy. The defense just locked in, as I just said right there. The defense locked in. The scheme with Robert Williams basically being able to roam or just hold a corner and come over and help, just really was a big thing. Marcus Smart, a defensive player of the year candidate. You throw that in with the fact that JT and JB are also defenders, and then you trade for Derek White, who was also a defender, and then Al Horford can still play defense. Boy, that is a squad. They just had to get on the string. That's it, and they did it. JB and JT started playing off of each other very well. Derek White, the trade addition aside from defensively, yes, obviously worried about his 3-point shot and if they're able to close in on that a little bit as the whatever team they play in the playoffs. Definitely worried about that as a factor. Also worried about when the offense stagnates as it did against the Miami Heat, or if they just get back to bad habits. Again, you only have 4 games to lose now, so losing 1 or 2 games like that can end up costing you. Do worry about things like that. However, they have been a really, really good team. And even without Robert Williams, they've still been competitive in games. They've still, you don't be as good as they've been in this last part of the season and lose 1 guy and completely fall off. That's not what happens. But I still do stick to the point that to win, yeah, you got to get him back at close to 100% of what he was before the injury, which I do worry about. Their situation, they finished second. Milwaukee played nobody yesterday. That's an interesting, well, I'll talk about Milwaukee in a second. I'll talk about what happened with that in a second. But yes, Boston right now is just waiting to see who they're going to be playing in the play-in. So also could be Cleveland, hell, could be Atlanta, could be Charlotte. Oh, sorry, no, it couldn't. My bad. It could either be Cleveland or the Nets. That's it. That is it. It's one of those 2 teams. It's Miami that could deal with everybody else as the A seed. So yeah, it's literally Brooklyn or Cleveland. Here is where I stand. First of all, they're going to be competitive with Brooklyn either way. There's been a lot of talk because yesterday there was a lot of interesting things happening with possible standing manipulation. On one hand, look, the team itself should have the thought that, yeah, we're going to let the chips fall where they may. The guys who actually have to be on the court should have that thought, because if you're sitting out to duck certain players or whatnot, that there's the whole psychological part of basketball. So yeah, they should want that. Now, Ime Udoka came out and said they looked at every scenario, and that's the conclusion that they came up with, which means they were thinking about tanking yesterday. They thought about going out against a Grizzlies team and saying, you know what, we're not going to play everybody. We're going to just, see if we can lose this game. That was something that was at least discussed by his words and what he said. That was something you can tell that they at least discussed, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. These things that are going around about, it's a joke, I think, with the basketball gods punishing it. That's all a bit that we do. But for us as the fans, I'm not mad at any team that looks and says, hey, let's let some of these other guys take each other out, because that's with this specific bracket. I don't know about standing manipulations in other years, but in this specific bracket, if you're the 3 seed, you get to play the Bulls, who have not been great to come down at the end of the season, and they don't have Lonzo Ball, and they haven't beaten good teams. You get to play them while Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving possibly get to play one of the best teams in the East. So one of them is going to already take each other out. And so at that point, it's just like, I don't know, it's like war strategy basically at that point. I don't see a problem with it from that perspective, which is why as fans, where I wouldn't have been mad if Boston, other than the fact that it would have been very clear ducking for Boston to sit everybody after what happened with Milwaukee. It would have been very clear Boston was trying to lose the game. I would have worried about it from that perspective of just psychologically, okay, you tried to avoid a team. But also, I would have been fine with being the 3rd seed and playing a team in Chicago who I'm fairly certain we could have beaten, and letting, if it falls to Brooklyn and Milwaukee, oh my god, Giannis or KD go ahead and take each other out that early so you don't end up having to go through both of them. I would have been fine with that. I'd have been fine with that. And I'm not going to sit here and say I feel any shame for it. I don't even know why that's controversial. I don't know why that's controversial at all. Just give me your hardest battles type shit. Like, fam, NBA is unforgiving. Everything in here is unforgiving. A guy twists an ankle, or you go through a super hard path and you get to the end of the road and you don't have anything left. Like those type of things, they just happen, man. They happen. Now, at this point, but still though, Boston and Brooklyn played a couple of weeks ago, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Boston played them very well. And Brooklyn is still like, they're questionable, man. Kyrie Irving has not been having great shooting games since he started playing home games, and I'm kind of wondering about that because he's been missing shots that are very makeable for him. So it kind of depends on which Kyrie you get. And it's also not assured, again, that they're going to be playing them at the second seed. But I'm just talking about this because there's a lot that went on. But Boston overall, you know, they've got their guys. They've had their guys entirety of 2022. They've been able to gel. I don't think that Brooklyn was just a shoe-in to beat them or anything. It's just probably the most challenging first-round matchup you could get. It's KD, Kyrie, and then Seth Curry, too. It's the most challenging first round that you could get. Is two of the greatest shot makers ever. So yeah, I would have loved for Milwaukee and them to take each other out, and then while we beat the Bulls and then get Robert Williams back and then go from there. Yeah, I'd have loved that. And hell, that's still whatever. Hey, Cleveland might win the play-in game, and then they play Cleveland and Boston. I'm pretty sure they'll beat Cleveland and go from there. That could still happen. That's a thing that could still happen. But I guess this will probably go ahead and take me to Milwaukee, because I've talked about Boston quite a bit down the stretch here of the season on this podcast. Milwaukee. So just to start with the most recent thing, yesterday, look, I'm well aware that they had the chance to tank earlier when they played Boston earlier in the like a week or two ago, maybe a week and a half ago. Yeah, they had a chance there. Here's what I think happened. First of all, yes, they played a bunch of games leading up to this last game. They had quite the schedule, so you can say they were load managing. I get it. But also, I think the opportunity very clearly presented itself to be 3 seed. I think two things can be true. One hand, yes, load management, that's cool. On the other, why would you play everybody against Cleveland and beat them when the reward is the second seed? Like, that's the actual reward, is the second seed for that, where you either do not face Brooklyn in the first round as a 3rd seed, or you have the chance to play them in the 2nd seed. You have no reason to play yourself into that. It's the last game of the season. You saw what happened to Luka last night. There was absolutely zero reward for Milwaukee for playing that game, other than, oh yeah, they going out like gangsters. Give me anybody. Let us play anybody. They did the smart thing. They rested their guys. Nobody got hurt in the last game, and they get the 3 seed. I get it. So we can joke about them ducking and all of that, but I 100%, and I seriously do think that factored in. I think the fact that they could just lock the 3rd seed and play the Bulls, who they will absolutely dominate more than likely, I think that played into it. I think that played into their decision to go with Mamu Kalishvili and whoever else they played. Lindell Wigginton yesterday, who, by the way, Mamu had a pretty good game, so I'm not roasting him. I'm just saying I think that was part of the decision to do that. I think Bucks fans that are on Twitter trying really hard to say, oh, they could have ducked a week ago. Yeah, they could have, but yesterday was the ultimate. Like, literally yesterday was decision day. So yeah, they could have done it against Boston early, which I think would have been worse. It would have been more egregious a week ago to give Boston a game so that they could get ahead. It would have been more egregious to do that purposely at that point than it was yesterday, where you could just kind of say, okay, yeah, that's one of the benefits. That's how I feel about that. Anyways, whatever happened. Milwaukee finishes the 3rd seed. They will be playing the Bulls in the 1st round. Given if some major turnaround doesn't happen, Milwaukee in 5 at worst. I'll just go ahead and put out a prediction there. But like I said, me and Mike will be doing ours. And this season, as far as back-to-back champs, I would say, yeah, it could have gone better. They weren't totally dominant, but you did what you wanted to do as a champion that needed to get itself healthy. So nobody sustained a super injury. They filled in for Brook Lopez as much as they could. Brook Lopez got back, which I didn't think was going to happen because he missed so much of the season. I didn't think he was going to come back. So they got the defensive base back. Giannis, much improved mid-range guy. Per cleaning the glass, let's see if I can remember this off the top of my head. He's shooting, and I'm just going to Google it as I'm thinking about it. I believe he's shooting around 41% from mid-range this year. Oh, good. I was already on the page because I was looking at it yesterday. Yes, so his shooting accuracy, he is absolutely shooting 41%, yep, from the mid-range, which is the highest of his career by a pretty good margin, yeah. Before that, it was 38% in the year 2020, which I'm going to theorize he wasn't shooting as many mids back then. But yeah, he's took the mid-range shot a lot this year, made it a lot. Saying he doesn't have a shot now is not totally accurate. Saying you would still rather have him like pull up from the mid-range or fade away than getting to the rim, I think that's always going to have truth to it. But yeah, he is much improved in that category. Didn't really improve the three-pointer, which would have been the ultimate thing. So when I made the video at the beginning of the season, that's really what I was thinking. His form looked better. I was going, okay, if he becomes even a decent shooter here, That'd be great. But it started with the mid range though, so the mid range has gotten there. His defense this year, in the role that they used him in, was great. I think his perimeter defense obviously is not the strongest point, but that's not how they use him anyways. He's a big man. Giannis, at the end of the day, I think we still forget, because of his physical attributes, this is a big guy. And so him as a rim protector, him as a help defender, that's a role that he should play more often than he should be on the perimeter trying to like fight over a screen or something like that. And they use him accordingly. At the end of the day, their playoff run, I still feel like it's like it was last year. Which Drew Holiday are we going to get offensively? Which Chris Middleton are we going to get offensively? That's it. Is Chris Middleton going to shoot like 4 of 15 on the night? Or is he going to hit every shot he takes and scores 40? That's a lot of these playoff games are going to come down to that. Because we know what they're capable of. They did it last year. They got Wesley Matthews back this year who's useful defensively, interestingly enough. It's literally just going to come down to those two around him because we know what Giannis is going to do, especially in this first round. We know what you're going to get from Giannis at this point. Yeah, that's Milwaukee. Like, there's not a whole lot to say. Defending champions, 3rd seed. After the first round, if they clean up Chicago the way they should, they would end up playing Boston in the second round if Boston were to advance as well, or they get the Nets. So that would, the second round of the East is going to be interesting if everybody who should advance advances, which makes you think about the Philadelphia 76ers. Got rid of Ben Simmons this year. They finished 51-31. Didn't know if they were actually going to be able to do it. They did. They got James Harden. I'm not doing the Brick Ross. I'm not doing the Brick Ross bit, bro. I'm not. But his shooting has been. Let's start away from it because we talk a lot about James Harden. Let's start somewhere else, actually. Doc Rivers last night got mad at a press conference because basically he was being questioned about why he's not playing a Paul Reed more. Just in general, guys wish Doc would use some of the younger guys more because other option is DeAndre Jordan. First of all, we want to start with that their bench options are just not great for a quote-unquote contender. The bench options are not that good. But I asked him, hey, like Paul Reed, I think he had 25 points last night. Give him a good small ball lineup. Why don't we use him more? And Doc Rivers very, very condescendingly basically said, we play Paul if we are playing against a small lineup. We think DJ is good for us against big lineups, and we have coaches that watch every game, so they know more than. That's basically what he said. I am just going to say DeAndre Jordan, right? Still a roll threat, so if he rolls for pick and roll and you get a guy caught in the middle, he can still catch a lob. And he's big, I guess. Like that, he's a big body. That's about all I can say for DJ. His effort on the basketball court is that of a retired player who is just on the court. That's it. And if you think DJ is, maybe it's just because it's the only option that they really have other than the young guys. He says that Doc Rivers said that we use Paul Reed in certain minutes and certain lineups, he's gonna get in foul trouble, which the stats kind of do back him up on that. You go look in the games that he's gotten minutes, he has a lot of 3 foul games, which could end up putting a team in the bonus. He had 5 last night. I don't want to put misinformation out there, but I'm pretty sure he had a good amount in like the last couple of games. So there is some truth to that. It's just a rock and a hard place pretty much because DJ is not going to move a lot. Not going to move on defense a lot. You put him on the floor in a playoff game, talking about fouls being able to swing a playoff game. What can also swing a playoff game is when a team sees that you've put DJ on the floor and they say, oh, okay, well, I know he's not really going to move. He might get up there and like show his hands a little bit, but for the most part, he's not going to be a plus in that pick and roll situation. As a matter of fact, he's probably going to cook your defense, and that can also swing the playoff game. So DJ minutes, I would say about this Philly team is what really interests me. What happens with DeAndre Jordan minutes? Because that is going to be a possible shit show in the playoffs in 2022. I thought we learned last year with his stint in Brooklyn. First of all, to my memory, he didn't even get playoff minutes last year because we learned beforehand, hey, he's not really an NBA player anymore. He's not an NBA level like center anymore. At this point, he's just really not. And Brooklyn learned that, so they didn't really use him. So Philly, anyways, yeah, so that's a lot of DeAndre Jordan talk for a guy who's not the main point of the team. Embiid finished the season really strong, had a 40-20 game, talked about how he thinks the voters pretty much hate him if he doesn't win this year, which is interesting because Jokic and Embiid were both just, or sorry, Jokic and Giannis were both just like, oh yeah, you know, I'm more interested in like my team. They went through the humble thing, even if they don't truly believe it. They act like it though, so they walk the talk with that. They both don't really care. Embiid's saying they hate me, which I guess if you break it down, but the other two have MVPs and Embiid doesn't have one yet, so it does suck sometimes not to be recognized for your work. But also, there's just a lot of good candidates, man. It's, you know, what can you do? Either way, they got more things to worry about. So yeah, Embiid's doing what Embiid does and what he has done all season, and yes, he's had an MVP caliber season even if he doesn't win. So there's that. However, the guy they traded for, man, James Harden, look. Stop putting the bar in hell for these guys, bro. I'm sick of that shit. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Just like they did for Westbrook this season. I always go back to that. This man has a good game or a good passing game or something. Like, oh, we'll talk about that. $40 million is more than a good passing game or a couple of good shooting games. It is more than leading a team in certain stats damn near by default. It's more than that when you make that much money and when you're tying up a team's finances like that. James Harden is due for like a $200 million extension, and you want me to be happy because he gets assists still. That's important. That is very important, especially on this team that is going to need a great facilitating and guys to get them open shots. And with the bench not really being that great, you're going to need to maximize what you have, and you definitely do that with passing more than ISO. Yes, that's one thing. On the other hand, this team is supposed to be contending. These 76ers are supposed to be contending. And they're going to have to pay James Harden a lot of money, or else it's like, well, we traded Ben Simmons and now we have Harden. And if you lose Harden, Embiid already signed up to be here for a while, what does that do to him? But if you keep Harden for that much money and he's no longer Harden, then also what does that do? I need more than like 35% from the field and a bunch of assists. I need more than that to move me. And so when you point out that Harden is not shooting well, but he had a 15 assist night, I don't need to hear, oh, but he produced a lot of points with his assists. You got to pay that man $200 million. He needs to be better than that. He's got to be better than that. It has to come with that, and it has to come with the scoring, because they're not going to win if he is shooting 30%, but he had a bunch of assists. They're not winning a championship like that, fam. And they're not winning a championship next year like that either. So I don't need to hear that shit. I don't need to stop shooting them so much bail. Stop shooting players like Harden that much bail. When they are tying up finances, they have to do more than that. And so down this stretch of this season, Harden has, bro, it's been Brick Ross. It has been Brick Ross. The step back is not really going like that. The finishing is not really going like that. And then when the foul don't get called, it's that used to be the part that made him so unguardable, right? Is he could get to the rim, and even if he didn't make it, if it was a lob to somebody or it was a foul, it's like, okay, Harden gives you something every single possession. Harden right now does not give you something every single possession, which is the issue. He has to, especially on this team where they're going to rely heavily on the starters, he's got to give you something every possession, whether it's a pass, whether it's a bucket, whether it's a foul, whether it's just bending the defense better than he can do it right now. He's got to give you something every single possession, and I'm not sure you're getting that from James Harden right now. On top of that, the bigger issue is they're playing Toronto in the first round. So it's going to be fun because Toronto plays a lot of like 6'8", 6'9" guys. So I wonder what Doc Rivers considers that in terms of who he's going to play between Paul Reed and DeAndre Jordan put off the bench. But anyways, that's not the main thing. It's Matisse Thybulle is unvaccinated. Matisse Thybulle is unvaccinated means he can't play games that are in Toronto. Toronto is a good team, and Toronto also just beat them the other day too, so that happened. Missing your what top defender, I'm gonna say, your top perimeter defender against this team. Fascinating, very, very fascinating for the 4-5 matchup. They have some questions, man. There's some question marks surrounding that. Oh boy, we're gonna dig into that on the podcast on Friday. But other than that, yeah, man, look, I guess like the Sixers, considering everything they were dealing with Ben Simmons and the trade that they were able to make happen, I would say it was definitely they succeeded in their goal and they won 50 games. They didn't end up in the back of the East as it was looking could happen at the beginning of the year. They didn't completely fall apart. But yeah, they've got this playoffs is going to be very, very interesting because I'm not sure how much longer Doc is going to be coaching there. And then what happens with Harden really, really matters. Like how he performs in the playoffs and what they do in the summer. It's really important to the future, man. I swear if I get one more tweet telling me about his goddamn assist and they got to pay this man $200 million for the future, which can make or break Embiid's career with the Sixers. Like, I swear to God, bro. The Toronto Raptors won 48 games, also made a very nice run where at the beginning of the year they were looking more like a play-in team. Pascal Siakam has a very strong All-NBA case. I have no clue why that surprises people when you say it. And there's a lot of All-NBA guys, but I've definitely seen him on some ballots, and I can get with it. Siakam is finally continuing what we thought he could be when 2019 happened. Really living up to the name, P skills. Still using the spin a lot, but effective in the mid-range, effective scorer. It's going to become really important. Their half-court offense in the playoffs, I am definitely interested to see how that holds up. Fred VanVleet, all-star season, also. Just literally the remnants of the 2019 finals team. A lot of the remnants of the 2019 finals team. Still here, still competing. It's a Nick Nurse team. Nick Nurse versus Doc Rivers is a very interesting... I think that might be the most... I can't say that's the most interesting coaching series. I'm most interested to see how that turns out, though. To have a coach that does things the way Nick Nurse does it, and I have Doc Rivers, who's very clearly stubborn, doing things the way that he does it. I'm very interested to see how that turns out, because that's not just a gimme for Philly. It's really not. The way it turns out, especially now that Matisse Thybulle is out, that's not a gimme. That series is not a gimme at all. The Toronto team almost won 50 games, and they've had some guys not only missing, but they still, in my opinion, are not very deep of a team. But yeah, so that's gonna be a fun series. As far as the season goes, yeah, like once again, Scotty Barnes, I don't know if he's winning Rookie of the Year yet, but a good rookie season for him. It was a good rookie season for him. I talked about how it was a stretch where it felt like he wasn't quite as visible, but he has come in and he's fit in with this team of just, it's interesting with the type of size that this Toronto team uses. He comes in and he fits right in with that. And what they do with him offensively, definitely interested to see when you don't have a Matisse Thybulle for those games. It's to just see what they do there, because he likes to put a lot of pressure on your defense in terms of just backing guys down and using his size to get to the rim, and how that opens it up for everyone else. Matisse Thybulle's not playing. That is going to be fun. That's just gonna be a fun series. I don't have a call on that one yet. Like, Philly should win it, but like, damn, Thybulle throws a wrench in that, and I can see Philly getting pushed, especially if Harden is sloppy as he's been shooting wise. They could end up getting pushed in that series. That's gonna be a fun one. But yeah, for the Raptors, look, I had been saying since the beginning, like, literally, you're just happy to not be in the play-in. They fought out of the play-in late, and to be here and to have Scotty Barnes, who I don't know if he surprised people this year, but to have him producing the way he is this early, and to have your core healthy, and to have guys making all-star teams and possibly all NBA teams, this is a super duper successful season for a Toronto team that had been, the way I used to see them is it felt to me like they were just kind of hanging on after Kawhi Leonard left. You had, because without Kawhi Leonard, they were not a championship team. You had all these championship pieces, and I was just going, damn, now there's just a hole there. And how do you patch that? Do you just keep running with this squad for years to come? Or, nobody really goes to Toronto, so how are you ever going to fill that? And then, damn, is it just going to slowly fall apart as they're mediocre every year? But to be able to fill that with a rookie and who's got sky high potential, and to have this group together, this is a great season if you're a Toronto Raptors fan. Not sure how much you care about. I mean, it'd be nice to get out of the first round, but you're happy that things shook out the way it did. Shout out to Nick Nurse, man. Shout out to Nick Nurse. Chicago Bulls fell to 6th. There was a stretch there where I thought they might fall to the play-in. It was never that, like, they won the important games to keep that from happening, but there was a chance that it could have happened. Here's the thing about Chicago in the 2022 season. They finished where we thought they were going to finish when the season started. I think I literally had the Bulls 6th. I'm pretty sure I had them 5th or 6th in my bracket at the beginning of the year. I had them anywhere from like that 4 to 6 area. So because of how flashy the season was and how much DeMar DeRozan shocked people and how much the Bulls just shocked people in general, especially defensively to start this season, I feel like now you're a bit more disappointed with where they are. It feels disappointing because at one point you're going, man, I literally in my championship contender video before they completely fell off, like I had them as a team that could, I think they were one of the teams I'm pretty sure I stretched. I was like, if I stretched it, I could mention them as a team that could get to the finals and have a chance to at least play for it. I don't think they're in that tier anymore. That video was made in like February, so things have happened since then. But because of that, that's why it feels disappointing when really as a first, still a young team generally, and to have DeRozan come there, this is where we thought they were. It's a successful season for sure. They're back in the playoffs. But it just sucks because injuries played such a big part in it. You didn't have Patrick Williams basically from the jump. Lonzo Ball is a big part of everything that they were doing. He's been out and he's not coming back. You just got Caruso back. So they've just kind of been hanging on more than being able to reach their potential, because their potential is very clearly higher than a 6 seed that's not competing with any of the top teams. I think the ceiling was higher than that at a point. Either way, DeRozan came in and he's got an all-NBA season. Looking at first, I have to go back and look at it, because there's so many deserving guys of all NBA spots. He's probably not first team anymore. I don't know, at a point I thought he was probably first team. Hell, I even think I had him first team last week. It's probably not going to end up being first team, but still, I think it shouldn't be forgotten just because they fell off the way they did, how much he did to keep them afloat, how much he did to keep that team where it was. And then even having his name being tossed around in MVP conversations. It was fun to push that propaganda, but I never thought he was actually going to win it. But it was definitely, if you have a season where you spend any amount of time in that conversation, you really had it like that. So good season for the Bulls, but Vooch is about to get exploited on both sides of the ball. Like, he's not defending anybody in this Bucks series, and he can't hit a 3. I don't even know what his worth is in this upcoming series. They're more than likely a first round out. Don't see them up beating the Bucks 4 times. That'd not beat the Bucks 4 times. Bucks would have to collapse for that to happen. But yeah, good season for the Chicago Bulls. Just more disappointing because of the way it finished. It started so high, and the way it finished makes it disappointing. But hey, once again, this is where we thought they would be. Even if the process getting there was worse than it should have been, that's. I think we forget that part. That's all I'm trying to say. And that leaves us out of the top 6. That takes us out of the top 6. Of course, we talked a little bit about Brooklyn already. There's chatter that Ben Simmons, this is what they're saying. They're releasing news saying that there's still a chance Ben Simmons can return in the playoffs. Personally, I think this is, I could be totally wrong. I always acknowledge I could be totally wrong. I just feel like it's damage control. Did you trade it for this guy? The question starts to be, how did you trade for him? And he's had this many problems just getting on the court. How did you not know that? So it kind of feels like it's damage control. Because even if he came back, like, once this doesn't make, like, what is he really going to bring to this team if his first action is playoff action on a new squad? It's especially with it's a totally new role for him offensively as well. It's not going to be the role he had with the Sixers. So I'm just really curious to see what he ends up bringing, if anything at all, if he does play. Either way, it doesn't look like it's going to be in the first round. They have to play their way in. Once again, it was a very interesting game against the Cavs, so it's not guaranteed that they're going to win that game. It's just you feel like in a one-game scenario where one team has KD and Kyrie, they probably should win it. But is Seth Curry going to play? He's still missing games with ankles. Don't know. For them, just being here is a they had a chance to get out of the play-in. It was far-fetched. They just fell so far without KD. You deal with the James Harden situation of him all of a sudden wanting to be traded. Then you got Kevin Durant out for the amount of time that he was out, and you're dealing with the Kyrie situation. I would say to be 7th, you're happy with that, and you play your way in, and you can start from there. Only unfortunate part is that literally you'll be playing contenders the entire bracket if you do make a run. So yes, you're the scariest low seed in some time, but yeah, playing the Celtics first, if you do that, and then next after that you would play the Heat, and after that you'd have to play the Bucks or Sixers. Yeah, that's an unfortunate path, and it's one that I'm not sure they can scale that mountain. However, let's just yeah, obviously let's end up seeing what happens. They just had to keep their head above water. This team literally just had to keep their head above water. They went through one of the weirdest seasons ever. To start with Kyrie, KD, and Harden, and then, oops, Kyrie's actually not going to play most of this season. Oh, but then he's going to come back, but then this guy is hurt, and then, oh, wait, Harden from this historic Big Three wants to be traded, but then Harden also wasn't really that great throughout most of the season, and then you were thinking about if you were going to have to pay him or not, which is now the Sixers' problem, which it's not really even a decision, it's just a problem, because you have to see which one you get. This is just a turbulent season for Brooklyn. But hey, this is, I guess, why the play-in exists, right? Because if they had fell any further, if they had been 9th or 10th, you wouldn't have been in it. A team can fall out because of injuries and still be able to play themselves back into it. Yeah, let's just see what happens in the play-in. That's the first part, because they still could end up not in the playoffs if they lost to Cleveland, and then it's just one more game for your life against the Hornets or Hawks, who have both played you kind of decently. So let's see if they make the playoffs at all. You don't know. This is why standing manipulation is hard to pull off. The Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers just got injured to hell. They were top 4 seed this season. We're having a very successful season, even made some trades to cover up for it. Then the guy they traded for got hurt. Injuries. That's Cleveland's story, man. Even Evan Mobley had an ankle injury to end. That's how they fell further to where they are. Darius Garland, breakout season, all-star, much deserved. Kevin Love, if you wanted to make a conversation out of the 6th man of the year race, you could do it with K Love and Tyler Hero. He's in the one like successful season Kevin Love has had with Cleveland since the LeBron era. This is what happens. It's mighty unfortunate, but what happens now is Jared Allen going to be in the play-in game. That changes things quite a bit because it's just a hand injury for him. So if he comes back, maybe be worried about some conditioning, but I'm sure he's been doing plenty of that since he's been out. So that could change the complexity of that game for sure. Don't know if he's going to be there. It would be really, really helpful if he was. It's unfortunate, man. Cleveland was a budding team, and they were figuring some things out offensively, but defensively, they were just kind of a nightmarish matchup for a lot of these squads. And the fact that they might not even be here now because they've got to basically hang on for their lives, it's unfortunate. I would like to say that I'm looking forward to the future with them, but it just feels like something's always wrong with Cleveland if LeBron isn't there. It just always feels that way. So yeah, I don't have much more to say for them because I praised them a lot throughout this season, and injuries just thwarted a whole lot of it. It's kind of the same thing they did for the Hawks, who have finished at 9th. Atlanta, John Collins, pretty sure he is still out. Like that injury he had, they had pretty shit luck, and their defense suffered through most of the year because of it. I still have Trae Young All NBA. He definitely makes an All NBA team for me. He's been, yeah. By the way, John Collins is definitely still out. Not going to be in that play-in game, but Trae Young has had an All NBA season, in my opinion. It's crazy because I always say, here goes this week's everything in life is optics. Nobody thought the Hawks should have been where they were last year. They shocked and awed. That people were already kind of saying, oh, it's just a fluke run. Then this season happened. So that is, no matter what and how good that run actually was and how much of a chance for the finals the Hawks actually had, that is always going to be looked at as a COVID fluke run, even though like COVID really didn't have a whole lot to do with it. But that's how people are going to remember it now. They're just gonna be like, oh yeah, that was that weird year. Everyone was hurt and it's the second season of COVID and the Hawks were almost in the finals. That's how to be remembered now because they might not be in the playoffs now. They'll be playing the Hornets first. And that is, Trae Young versus LaMelo is box office stuff. That is straight box office stuff. But it's unfortunate that one of them are gonna literally be chucked out this soon, or just immediately chucked out. Yeah, one of them is not gonna be here, so it's gonna end up happening. The Hawks have. I see Nate McMillan is already talking about the offseason. I saw a report from Pat Benson, I believe. He's a Hawks reporter, so he reported that Nate McMillan was basically saying, like, we don't want to be like this next season, and Trae Young's going, oh, my season's not over yet, so what are we doing here? We still have essentially 2 games and a whole playoffs left. So yeah, it'd be fun. I think the Hawks would be a fun first-round matchup if they were able to play Miami. I don't think they would beat them, but it would still be fun, especially just because of what we saw last year. Without the defense being what it was, don't see upset. But it's always interesting to see a team have to defend Trae Young, especially in the playoffs after what we saw, because he had basically solidified himself as a superstar, or was starting to solidify himself as a superstar anyways with that run. So, an unfortunate season. Do you know the thing about the Hawks is that, or the thing about Trae Young is, you remember, I think that was actually in the first podcast where Trae Young had said, man, the regular season is just boring now that we had a taste of the playoffs. I get it, but I felt like that was a terrible thing to say from the very beginning, just because they were 2 wins away from the finals. And I understood it, and the regular season could be boring, but also the Hawks still weren't them yet. To be saying stuff like that, that's stuff you say if you're the, like, I don't know, if you're LeBron, or you're the 2009 Lakers that were going back to the finals, the 2010 Lakers who had been there 3 times. If you're that type of team, that's where you go, yeah, regular season just kind of work, but we do it. You don't do that after one playoff run. I felt like that was but he played great, so it's not like he set a tone for himself and had a bad season or anything. I just felt like, I don't know, him saying that as the leader of that team, even though they way more contributed to their downfall this year, or for them being where they were, I just felt like that was a terrible vibe to start the season with. And so, play-in game against the Charlotte Hornets. Yes, they are back. LaMelo had a interesting player, what was it? Not Players Tribute, a Slam interview, where he was basically saying, look, I'm just playing ball right now. I'm playing ball and I'm doing what coach wants, but once they give me the keys, it's over. That's kind of the gist of his interview there. So I found that interesting. I felt like he kind of threw Mason Plumlee under the bus, saying that he needs a center that's just going to give him the ball and let him work, which is interesting. That's an interesting sentence, a center that's going to give him the ball. Basically, you just say it comes down to, like we had been saying for a while now, they need a upgrade at center. Mason Plumlee, sure, he can pass or whatever. They need a different center though. That's for sure. I would say I'm disappointed though. Well, for one, you have to mention that Gordon Hayward's injury has played into this. He would definitely be of service to them. Him being out most of the year and now being out again, even though he came back, he's now had to stabilize his foot. I don't think we're going to see much of him regardless of if they advance or not. Just though, with the improvements to Miles Bridges this year, and I was really, he came very far. He's in that most improved conversation for sure, along with Ja, along with Darius Garland. Like, I think that's, unless I'm forgetting somebody, because I'm talking off the top of my head, that's pretty much the big 3 there. I don't know, I saw that, but for them to be right back at pretty much in the same position that they were last year, I guess that just feels a little disappointing. You know, Terry Rozier's had a good season. LaMelo remains probably the most creative passer in the NBA, but definitely coming into the next season, after this, because who knows what's about to happen in this play-in game. They need a significant change to the roster. Not in terms of trading a bunch of guys. They need a player that really kind of moves the needle for them. Because you got LaMelo doing what he does, and he's going to improve and hopefully get more reins over the offense next season. I think that might end up taking a different coach. So if the coach is a change, that's one thing. But hopefully they don't come into next season still saying, the center is the only thing they're missing to kind of push them over the top and to have them be a regular playoff team. I don't know. I was hoping for a little bit more. The injuries played a part, sure, but I guess I was just hoping for a little bit more for Charlotte. Because Hayward is starting to get up there, and he's clearly got this injury problem. That's not a guy that you really want to be dependent on in terms of if you're a playoff regular or a play-in team. And it's starting to feel like you just can't depend on that at all. So we'll see what ends up happening. But for the moment, Charlotte is the play-in game with the Hawks. It's going to be fun. Just unfortunate. The New York Knicks. You hear that sound? It's Julius Randle packing. He's got to go. I don't know how he's going to go. He has a contract that seems very hard to move, but gotta get the fuck out of here. This is the fun part with New York, right? A season ago, they drafted Obi Toppin. They weren't not a good team. I assumed that I went, okay, because I didn't understand how Tibbs operated. Admittedly, I wasn't really paying attention to how Tibbs operates. But when they drafted Obi, I was like, okay, so I guess this is what's going to happen. You put Obi in, and you just start building from there, because he's a top prospect. My calculation is thinking Tibbs was going to give young guys burn like that. But also, in that time, I had specifically said, one of the funniest things I'm always going to remember about my time covering basketball is saying Julius Randle is not your future. Well, this is why you just let takes age, because for that season, I looked completely wrong. He made the All-Star team. He was good last year up until the playoffs. And so it was hilarious having that tweet exist that said Randle is not the future. When I was wondering why go this route? If you're Tibbs and you got this team that's clearly not supposed to be that good, why start Julius Randle instead of just go ahead and get on with the building process of your young guys? And then Julius Randle broke out and had an All-Star year. Thing is, the All-Star year didn't last and turned into a bad year this season. And so what's been interesting down the stretch for the Knicks, and D-Rose being out definitely didn't help, but down the stretch for the Knicks is they've been running young guys because they've really had nothing to play for. So it's like, all right, let's just go ahead and get these young guys more burn, get Emmanuel quickly out there, get Jericho Sims playing, who had some time in the G League. Let's get Obi Toppin some more minutes. Obi Toppin started in the month of April. Played 38 minutes a game. That sounds like Tibbs. Shot 55% from the field and 46% from 3 on 8 attempts per game. That's... I heard a beep outside. I was ready for that car alarm to just go ahead and invade the podcast completely. That is interesting because of how he's getting his buckets. So spotting up from the 3-point line, but also using his athleticism like we know he can, and finishing and cutting back door. I see the OB vision. I see it. But come back next year. What do you do now if you're Tibbs? First of all, what do you do if the Knicks? If you're the Knicks, are you keeping Tibbs knowing how he likes to coach? Is you come back next year and you put Randle back over Obi, there's gonna be some mad fans. Not just because Obi Toppin just, he's came in and had 5 or 8 really good games here at the end. Just because you drafted him now 2 years ago. And this was what I wanted in the first place. Let him blossom, because he seems like he has that type of potential. So let him blossom and don't just put him in every now and then off the bench to come get a couple of buckets, or to just, just fill in some time. Like, actually give him time to develop. You're a bad team. Just give him time to develop. And so I'm very encouraged by what I've seen to end this season from him. Top shooting for sure. 46% from 3 is probably not sustainable in that many attempts. But just the fact that this is, okay, especially in today's game, this is your mobile 4 who is going to spread the floor and can spot up. If he can continue that, if he's able to spot up and then say, all right, use that against the defense to cut behind it and be able to catch lobs and things like that, because he's definitely going to be a better roll threat just off that alone, just off his athleticism alone, but especially if he's hitting threes, be a much bigger roll threat than Randle ever would. Yeah, it sounded like that Obi blossom. Go with your young guys, because also RJ Barrett, to not even just to end this season, he's as a driver in the year 2022, RJ Barrett has been with the shits, man. I think he took it feels like to me he's taken a significant jump as the calendar year turned. It was noticeable. So the Knicks weren't doing that good, but it was always okay. It was always RJ is getting more aggressive. RJ is getting more shots. He's getting better looks. So it just kind of feels like that's what they should be focused on going forward, and not trying to just immediately compete because they were top 4 last year for what now looks like a fluke season. And I'm looking up just to confirm some information with RJ Barrett, with him like getting to the rim this year. In the 83rd percentile, I believe. Yeah, this is his 3rd season already. Wow. In the 83rd percentile of drivers at his position, or getting to the rim at his position in terms of frequency. So then if you go to accuracy, look at him finishing at the rim. I'm not sure if that fits my propaganda, not gonna lie. Either way, it's to end this year. I like the development that I'm seeing in year 3, RJ Barrett. The fact that I straight up said, I don't know if that information supports my propaganda on the podcast. Either way, yeah, that's basically the story with the Knicks. Go with your young guys. Defensively, they looked like they had more juice and more life and more energy. Go with the young guys. And if Tibbs is not going to do that, Tibbs got to go. Because if Randle, I'm just gonna be real. I didn't like it last year when it happened. Even though Randle made the All-Star team, I did not like that. Sure, he got one All-Star appearance out of it. You went and got beat down in the playoffs. I want to see something different going forward. So we'll see if the Knicks go with that or if they run it back. Because because they were linked to the name they were linked to the Damian Lillard name back when it looked like they might trade him. And it was like, oh hey, so wait, Damian Lillard and Julius Randle, is that the future? It's probably not the future. The Washington Wizards, they traded for Kristaps Porzingis, and Porzingis, dare I say, looked pretty good. He looked pretty good from multiple spaces on the floor. So obviously still getting his 3-pointers up, but it feels like he's posting up more as a Wizard. Feels like they're using him a little bit more with his back to the basket. So whether he, is getting down low from that or he's passing out of that, whatever it is, you're using him as more than just a 3-point shooter, and I like it. As a matter of fact, for Kristaps, just in his Wizards tenure, he absolutely deserves like his actual numbers to be put out there. The interesting part as we get to that, yes, he has a Washington Wizard, so he played 17 games with them, averaged 22 points, shot 36% from 3, 47 from the field, was also giving you nearly 2 blocks a game, about 9 rebounds. Like it's encouraging. It is encouraging. But it's also kind of like slow your roll, because I'm not sure what's happening with Bradley Beal. As a matter of fact, Bradley Beal can leave this summer if I'm not mistaken. So I haven't heard a lot about it. And do you know what? If Beal is saying, oh, well, yeah, I want to be one of those guys, which he did say, I want to be one of those guys if there's an opportunity to win with my team that drafted me, then I want to take that. So I wonder if he's encouraged by what he's seeing with Bradley Beal. So other than that, it is going to be interesting to see what they do with the rest of the guys. They've got a lot of young guys, and they're going to have to do something with it. With having a Rui Hachimura, who had some interesting flashes at the end here, Denny Avdia, who I hope I said that right, as a defender for sure. I think it'll end up popping more once the Wizards are on some radars. But played all 82 games, I believe, and when he's aggressive, he's got something to bring to the table. But there will inevitably have to be some trades, because they're kind of backlogged a little bit with the forwards. It's a problem that you get when you're a young team, same one that the Magic have at the guard position. So they've got a lot of roster questions to kind of figure out, and it starts with Bradley Beal and it goes down to which young guys you're going to end up committing to. But I will at least say it's a positive that you traded. All you had to give up was Spencer Dinwiddie, who was not fitting there at all, and Bertans, who I'm not sure how much of a career he has left if he's not going to be hitting shots. Just like the one thing you need him to do. Anyways, that's all you had to give up for Porzingis, who looks like he might really be able to add something for the Wizards. Anyways, that would be significant. So going to be interesting to see what happens with the Wizards going forward, but it's just a giant question mark right now because of Bradley Beal. That brings us to the Indiana Pacers, who have apparently made other teams feel like Malcolm Brogdon is available. So they started this season, I actually thought they were going to be able to be a playoff team. I think some injuries kind of kept that from happening at the beginning, and it fell apart, and the Pacers were like, you know what, this team is not going anywhere anyways, let's just go ahead and start breaking this up. They did so. They got Tyrese Halliburton. That was great. And they got Buddy Hield, who played well in his Pacers tenure. So I'm interested to see if they use the end of this season as justification to keep him and say maybe he's one of the guys we just roll with, or if they trade him for something, even if they trade him for more pieces. That's going to be interesting to see what happens with Hield. But to get Reese out of that was obviously great. If you've been paying attention to his stint with as a Pacer, it's gone great. Had a 17 assists, 0 turnover game recently. With the Kings this season, he was you see the shot, it doesn't look like it works, but it absolutely does work, whether it's off the dribble, whether it's standstill. One of the best young passers in the league. Now you just need to do what I thought the Kings were going to do. Gotta let them blossom, which means there does not need to be games where Malcolm Brogdon, who is, I'm about to pull a Steve Jones Jr. Let me check his age real quick. Yeah, no, you don't need games where Malcolm Brogdon is like the lead ball handler at about to turn 30 years old, while Reese stands in the corner for multiple possessions. That's not his best function. He's clearly best with the ball. You can actually I'm not sure on Brogdon's contract. I'm not sure what you'll get for him, but you can get some pieces for that and get some younger pieces. Let that shit go, fam. This double point guard stuff, I hate it. I hate it. And I'm pretty sure the Pacers probably see that too. And so you'll come into next season with multiple young guys. Miles Turner, I'm guessing, I don't know, that man just like Kendrick Nunn Well, yeah, no, it was the injury. Nah, there's nothing like Kendrick Nunn. My bad. Miles Turner actually did get hurt. Kendrick Nunn, I forgot to talk about him with the Lakers because I forgot he was there. Was he really there, though? Yeah, we'll see what happens with Miles Turner, whether they're going to keep him or they're going to cash him. But I would definitely, just based off of seeing what Halliburton was able to do with Rashawn Holmes, I'd be very interested to see him working with Miles Turner, who will actually be able to pop as well in the PNR. So that'd be really interesting. Pacers, just, a nice young core. Yeah, and Isaiah Jackson is there as well. So now I'm really interested to see what happens if Miles Turner comes back and you end up using them together. Shout out to Terry Taylor being on that team, also a G League guy who, for his size, rebounds just at an insane level. He was doing that in the G League, and it's cool that's one of the cooler parts about following the G this year, seeing guys like him and Xavier Simpson do things that they did, in the G, literally, and bring it here. Yeah, Pacers rebuild process. That's literally where they're at. Ended the season on a 10-game lose streak. Oh, and I'm super interested to see what they end up getting in the draft. Oh, I am just. Let me just wait and see what happens with that. Detroit basketball will be back, y'all. I'm telling you, it's gonna be back. So, a couple of weeks ago, I did talk about Marvin Bagley a little bit, just because I had always liked the idea of him next to Cade once he got traded there. I wanted to see it play out, and it played out as good as for the most part, as good as I had hoped that it would. So having him as a role option, having him, cut from corners, and then just even his own finishing around the rim, just giving him the ball, letting him finish. I think Bagley is in an environment where he's got a chance to succeed, which I'm not 100% sure if he had on the Kings. He's actually getting, and that's why they were mad and wanted him gone from there anyways. But he's got a chance to succeed, and he's got a guy who's going to be a superstar point guard setting him up. So absolutely love it. Cade has been doing the things that he's done this year without real adequate space, in my opinion. Like you have Sadiq Bey, he's got to be the streakiest player in the league. From the three, he's got to be the streakiest player, man. That man is either about to score 50, and he's gonna hit like 7 threes, or he is gonna be 1 for 12 from 3 on a night. He is just insanely streaky. But this Pistons roster, Detroit obviously doesn't have a great track record with building anything great. Remember, they were building with young guys once upon a time, and they decided to put Drummond, Josh Smith, and Greg Monroe together. So hopefully the thought processes are a little bit different, because you've got a Jim and Cade, bro. Also started just a little bit slow, but also because he was recovering from injury. Since that happened, first of all, big body guard. I'm interested to see where his career goes defensively. That's one part. But on the offensive end, the vision is absolutely there. The creation off the ball, I'm already looking at some of the moves that he has in his bag. That bag is only getting deeper as time goes on. Then him as a finisher, him as a driver. Hell, we were talking about RJ Barrett as a driver. Cade Cunningham being able to, and hopefully open his game up as his shooting, improves even more. Getting downhill, his finishing is like, I've seen him have some insane finishes this year. Guys go straight up with both hands, and he's able to contort and get one off the backboard. Cade Cunningham, year 2, I am super duper excited for that. I really believe if the Pistons handle this rebuild, like, just well, which they don't really do, but if they did, like, bro, give this, like, 2 or 3 years, Detroit might actually be relevant again. Because Cade is him. Cade, shout out to Sage, bro. Cade is him. So I hope that these flashes that we've seen from Bagley here at the end aren't just like, he got traded and he was refreshed, and then it never goes anywhere. I really hope that it actually turns into something, and that will, that's just a project to watch. That is a project to watch. And Cade Cunningham, is he going to win Rookie of the Year? I don't think so, but he's definitely he's played well enough for a good enough time, I would say, to have an argument. I just think that the chunk that he missed at the beginning and the ramp up period might hurt it a little bit. It's one of those things, just like the Luka MVP case. It's like you have to look at the whole season. All right, let me go ahead and finish this podcast before my power cuts off. And I completely, I really should just like press record here and save what I've done, because I will not redo this. Y'all just won't get a podcast this week if this doesn't save. It's 2 hours. Let me do that real quick. Hold on. Okay, yeah, I saved that 2 hours and 18 minutes because I was just looking and realizing I haven't. Well, it's probably going to be shorter because I took a break. I just realized I hadn't pressed save And I was like, man, if the power comes out, I swear to God, y'all just won't get a podcast. And I've really liked this one so far. Being able to talk about all these teams that I've been able to watch this year has been a whole lot of fun. Or just touch on them at least. Haven't really gone in depth on all of them, including the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic have a lot of young guys. One of the young guys, I'm not sure he's ever coming back because Jonathan Isaac is Orlando Magic player Jonathan Isaac is speaking at the upcoming QAnon-friendly We Awaken American tour with Eric Trump, Michael Flynn, Mike Lindell, and a lot of other conspiracy theories. So he hasn't played basketball. That's not, whatever he believes, he believes. He hasn't played basketball in a while, and so he has a book now called Why I Stand, and he's doing this now. So like he had a setback in his injury, and we haven't seen him since the bubble. But also, he could be a really good piece for this young Magic team if he would spread his wings there instead of at CPAC. But whatever. Anyways, so don't know when Jonathan Isaac is going to play basketball again. Hopefully, he's back next year. Outside of that, the Magic just have a lot of they're about to, I'm wondering who they're going to draft. What are they going to do with the draft? Because as far as their guards, they're pretty much in the same position already early on that the Kings were in. Not that they have a player as good as De'Aaron Fox, but between Cole, Markelle Fultz, and Suggs, like they're gonna eventually have to choose. All three of those guys are not gonna be as a part of an eventual core that goes somewhere. That's just not gonna happen with all three of them there. And Markelle Fultz has come back and he hasn't really. I don't know. I wouldn't say he hasn't missed a beat, but for as long as he was out and with the injury he had, he has a strong return. He's had a strong return. So you got him. You have to figure out what you want to do with your bigs. Wendell Carter has had such a good season that I'm not going to say that the Bulls regret trading him, because they weren't going to get all the other guys they got this summer without trading for him, because the idea of Vooch was a pretty, it was a pretty encouraging thing, I think, in building the roster, being able to build the roster that they had. But Wendell Carter has really been good for the Magic. He's developing pretty nicely for them. On both sides of the ball, really. Mo Bamba, not sure if the Magic are going to keep him. I know they were dangling him as a trade piece earlier. I think they're probably going to want to end up moving on from him. And then, of course, literally their magical rookie, Franz Wagner, who, because he plays in Orlando, probably didn't get the hype that he would get elsewhere, but he's been pretty good this season, and in year two is going to be better. As long as it develops on the trajectory it looks like it can, because the boy can score. The boy can get a bucket when he needs one. It's just there's a lot of young guys that also need the same thing. So I want to see how they start shaping this, because they're going to draft another guy on top of that. It's literally just a backlog in Orlando. However, I will say, at least there's a core of something here now. Because for a while, Orlando is just kind of existed, and I've been saying that for a while. Now, every time I talk about the Magic, they just kind of exist, and you don't really know what direction they're going. So now you've actually got a lot to work with. You just have to choose correctly. And the guard thing is going to be really fun. Because at the end of the day, I think it's going to be one or two of them. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to go in with even with just two of them. Out of any of those three guards that you have, I'm not sure you're going to be able to go forward with just two of them. Even two of them, because I'm not sure that one or the other would end up reaching their potential if you did. Again, I just hate this. I hate these guard situations, but yeah, Orlando is gonna be an interesting eye to keep on over the summer in the draft, and yeah, Jonathan Isaac wants to play basketball again. He will also add to that. Scam likely. It must be time to go. I think it is time to go, man. I've been here for a while. Those are my thoughts on all 30 teams throughout the season. On Friday, that's where this week's podcast is going to come out. It's not going to be on Sunday. It's going to be on Friday, because that's the only time I can work with Mike Korzemba. We've been trying to do a podcast all season, and we're finally getting a little bit of time to do that. That is where our playoff predictions will come in. At least some of the play-in will be done by that point. I guess the part that matters will be done, because the A seed on most of these, unless Brooklyn ends up falling, no, it kind of matters either way. So, we'll end up seeing what happens. We'll have enough there to do some predictions, and I just want to bounce my predictions off of somebody else, rather than doing it alone here. So that's why I didn't do it today. Also, not having 7 and 8 just didn't feel right. Well, it's been a fun season. I appreciate you all for watching and listening. I have said a mouthful today, so if you can rate the podcast, it would be much appreciated. If you're on YouTube, hitting a like and leaving your thoughts in the comment section always helps. Happy playoff season, y'all. This is so great. The weight lifted off my brain for not having to cover a super team or just waiting for a super team to dominate. It just feels beautiful. This feels beautiful. We are a long way from 2017. I would say that. Take care.